All right, let's just jump right in. WrestleMania 41 just finished up in Las Vegas, and wow, the scale, it's just mind-boggling. We're talking over 117,000 people across the 2 nights.
It really is something else.
Yeah, forget just wrestling. This is like a huge cultural event now.
Absolutely. WrestleMania has become this massive annual thing, hasn't it? A real spectacle, pulls in all sorts of people. You can feel the energy.
Totally. And the boost it gives the host city is huge. So, yeah, we're diving deep into WrestleMania 41, April 19th and 20th, Allegiant Stadium. And it's actually the second time Vegas hosted, but the first one was way back.
Oh, yeah. Long time ago. Shows how much it's grown.
Right.
And it's amazing when you think about it. Compare this to that first Vegas WrestleMania back in '93. The production, the stories, the global reach, it's just exploded.
No kidding. And here's a curveball for you. This WrestleMania 41, it was the first one ever to happen during Easter weekend.
Yeah, that scheduling definitely stood out. Usually it's late March, early April.
And it also changed how a lot of people watched it. I mean, obviously, pay-per-view, Peacock in the U.S., that was standard.
Sure.
But the really big news, internationally anyway, was WrestleMania debuting live on Netflix in most places. That's part of that huge new 10-year deal.
Right, that Netflix deal. That's a massive shift.
It feels like it. The WWE Network still had it in some areas, but Netflix, that's a potential game changer for reaching people.
Well, yeah, if you think about the media world now, putting it on Netflix just taps into this enormous global subscriber base instantly. It's about, meeting the audience where they are.
Makes sense. WrestleMania, it's way more than just the 2 nights at the stadium, right? It's a whole week.
Oh, yeah, Mania Week is huge.
We had Raw beforehand in Sacramento, Willamania X, SmackDown, which had the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. Carmelo Hayes won that.
The Battle Royal.
WWE Hall of Fame ceremony, NXT Stand and Deliver. Undertaker did his one-man show.
The One Dead Man show, yeah.
There was even a roast of WrestleMania. Then the Raw After Mania, another NXT show.
Yeah.
All spread out across Vegas.
It really shows you how massive Mania Week is for the host city. Turns it into this wrestling hub, tons of events, brings in so much money.
And they had WWE World at WrestleMania too, that 5-day fan convention.
Right, the Fan Fest. Panels, meet and greets.
Yeah, podcasts, the Slammy Awards were there. WWE even partnered with Clash of Clans for some kind of enhanced match sponsorship.
Okay, corporate synergy.
And Pat McAfee was doing his ESPN show live from WWE World all week.
See, it just shows WrestleMania isn't just wrestling. It's this major entertainment property, integrating with other brands, engaging fans on all these levels.
And of course, the celebrity involvement, always a big part.
Yep. Who did they have this year?
Dana White did the opening video for night one. Jelly Roll sang God Bless America.
Okay.
Salvatore Ganacci did this whole entrance thing with the Las Vegas Raiderettes for Jey Uso. Jim Cantor from the Weather Channel was part of Jade Cargill's entrance.
Cantor, okay, that's random but kind of cool.
Living Color played CM Punk's theme live.
Nice.
Ava Max sang the anthem on night 2. Kerry King from Slayer played Damian Priest's entrance.
Oh, yeah, heavy metal for Priest makes sense.
And then, of course, Travis Scott with his big role in the main event finish.
Right. Having those celebrities, it definitely broadens the appeal, doesn't it? Brings in eyes that might not normally watch wrestling, gets mainstream buzz.
Totally adds to the spectacle feel. Now, some behind-the-scenes stuff is interesting, too. Like, apparently Minneapolis was in the running to host WrestleMania 41.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but Vegas got it. And the thinking is, it might have been tied to the WWE-UFC merger, TKO Group Holdings. The new bosses have strong Vegas ties.
That makes sense. Big corporate moves like a merger, yeah, they definitely influence stuff like where you hold your biggest event. Follows the strategic priorities.
And back to that weird Easter weekend scheduling.
Yeah, what was the deal with that?
Well, what we heard was that Las Vegas tourism wasn't actually expecting a big crowd that weekend. It was projected to be kind of slow.
Huh. Easter weekend, okay.
So they hoped WrestleMania would give them a big tourism boost. And because of that, WWE maybe had a bit more leverage negotiating their site fee.
Okay, so it was strategic, good for WWE, potentially getting a better deal, and good for Vegas, getting visitors during a slower time. Win-win, maybe.
Seems like it.
Yeah, this is interesting. Dave Meltzer, who's, a very well-known wrestling journalist.
Very respected, yeah.
He reported the numbers WWE announced, about 61,500 for night one, and just over 63,200 for night 2, both called sellouts.
Okay, so what's the issue?
Well, Meltzer points out, it's the same stadium, same stage setup both nights. So how do you suddenly fit almost 1,800 more people in on night 2?
That is a bit strange.
Yeah.
Not impossible, maybe slight configuration changes, but it raises a question.
It does. It makes you think a little about how those official numbers get presented versus, well, the physical reality of the seats.
Interesting. Okay, so what else did the notes reveal? You mentioned a peek into earlier plans.
Yeah, this is fascinating. From something called the WWE Unreal documentary, apparently.
Yeah.
It shows some drastically different ideas from, like, early December.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, one consistent idea seems to have been Cody Rhodes versus John Cena. That was apparently on the books for a while.
Okay, Cena. Wow. But what about the big title matches?
Totally different. The early plan for the World Heavyweight title was Gunther defending against both Punk and Rollins in a triple threat.
Whoa. Okay.
And then another match. Rhea Ripley versus Bianca Belair for one women's title. Jade Cargill versus Nia Jax for the other.
Jade Cargill. Wasn't she injured?
Exactly. That's one reason plans changed. The notes mention her injury impacting the WWE women's title picture.
Okay. What else was floated?
Let's see. Wyatt Six versus Judgment Day. That was apparently tied to the Uncle Howdy Taylor Rotunda injury situation.
Ah, right. So that affected those plans too.
Yep. There was talk of Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch teaming up against Io Sky and Asuka.
Interesting pairing.
Bad Bunny versus Dominik Mysterio. Chad Gable versus Rey Mysterio. Braun Breaker versus Drew McIntyre, though not for the IC title. Randy Orton versus Kevin Owens. AJ Styles versus Logan Paul. It's quite a list of what-ifs.
It really is pretty eye-opening. It gives you a sense of the complex puzzle they're putting together. So many moving parts.
Totally. You're juggling dozens of performers, ongoing stories, injuries, trying to make the most compelling card possible.
And we know some specific reasons. Plans shifted beyond Jade's injury.
Yeah, the notes mention Jey Uso's popularity just exploding. That apparently led directly to him getting the singles match against Gunther instead of whatever the earlier plan was.
So fan reaction really can change things significantly.
It seems so, yeah. These aren't just creative decisions made in a vacuum. Audience response, injuries, other real-world factors, they all play a huge role.
It even says there was internal debate about Gunther versus Rollins possibly main eventing night one.
Right. Apparently, Rollins' strength on the microphone and the draw of that potential triple threat with Reigns and Punk made it a serious contender.
It just shows you how many different directions WrestleMania could have gone. Okay, let's break down night one then.
Let's do it. So where better to start than the very beginning, that first big video package, City of Dreamers.
Right, and the narrator was Dana White, the UFC guy.
Yeah. Straight away, that's kind of a curveball, isn't it? Not your typical wrestling voiceover.
Mm-hmm.
What did you make of that? Using someone so tied to, well, a different kind of fight game.
It's fascinating, yeah. It immediately, broadens the whole thing. Using Dana White, Mr. UFC, it puts WrestleMania right into that bigger combat sports conversation. It feels almost like they're trying to grab fans who maybe appreciate that gritty UFC feel, maybe blurring the lines a bit between wrestling's drama and MMA's, perceived realism.
I think you're right. It potentially draws in a demographic that might otherwise, just pass wrestling by.
Yeah. And the theme itself, City of Dreamers, focusing hard on Vegas. Did you think they captured that Vegas vibe effectively? Beyond just the neon signs, I mean.
Well, they definitely showed the visuals, the neon pulse, the strip, the glittering hub, as they called it. And that little detail about the strip actually being in Paradise, Nevada. It kind of adds to that dreamlike feeling, doesn't it? Like it's this larger-than-life place just outside reality, which, fits WrestleMania pretty well.
True. But did it connect deeper? That idea of everyone coming to Vegas with a dream?
Well, they dropped that statistic, didn't they? Over 40 million visitors a year, each with their own hopes. That tries to make the connection, I think.
Okay.
And then flashing up icons like Wayne Newton, Sinatra, Elvis, Tyson, alongside UFC, the Raiders, even past WrestleManias held there. It's like they're deliberately weaving this event into the Vegas fabric.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Using the city's own mythology. And the video also mentioned WrestleMania's own growth, right? From 2 hours to 2 nights, arenas to stadiums. Why emphasize that, do you think?
I think it does a couple of things. For older fans, it's a nod to the journey, how huge it's become. For newer viewers, it's like saying, look, this isn't just some wrestling show. It's a massive, evolving cultural thing.
Right, establishing its importance.
Yeah. And then that final line. Where else but Las Vegas? Where else but a place called Paradise? Where else but Wrestle-fucking-mania? It seems to capture this feeling of unparalleled and almost unbelievable spectacle.
Right. Definitely a mic drop moment. Okay, so that cinematic intro finishes, and then we get Jelly Roll performing God Bless America.
Yeah, building on his SummerSlam appearance, Alicia Taylor introduces him.
Hell yeah, Jelly Roll!
What stood out to you there?
Well, the commentary seemed positive, so it obviously landed okay. But also, I heard it was quite concise, quite short, which feels important on a show this big. You need to keep the energy up.
Exactly. Pacing is crucial. No room for lulls, especially right at the start. Keep it tight. Keep it moving. It affects the crowd, affects everyone watching at home.
Good point. Then that amazing overhead shot of Allegiant Stadium, all lit up.
Yeah.
Wow. And Michael Cole kicks in, previewing the night.
Yeah, this is where they start laying out the actual matches for you, the viewer, setting the stage for the action. And they showed clips, too, right? Superstars arriving.
So Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Paul Heyman with CM Punk, that's a whole story in itself.
Yep.
Plus Charlotte Flair, Tiffany Stratton. Added that touch of glamour and anticipation.
And those quick backstage shots, too. Gunther, Jey Uso. Getting ready for that opener, it immediately makes that first match feel more intense.
Totally primes the audience. And what a list of matches they ran through. 7 matches announced for night 1.
Yeah, a real mix. Gunther versus Jey Uso for the World Heavyweight title right off the bat.
And War Raiders versus New Day for the tag titles. Naomi versus Jade Cargill. That's interesting.
LA Knight versus Jacob Fatu for the U.S. title. El Grande Americano versus Rey Fenix stepping in for the injured Rey Mysterio. Right?
Yeah, that was a late change. Then Tiffany Stratton versus Charlotte Flair for the Women's Championship. Big match feel there.
And the main event, CM Punk with Heyman against Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins in a triple threat. Wow.
It's just stacked. And Cole highlighted some key stories, didn't he? Roman's 10th Mania main event, but no bloodline this time. The history between him and Rollins. And like you said, Heyman aligning with Punk. That's a game changer.
Huge implications. Those are the hooks, right? Reminding you of the history, the stakes. They also apparently hyped up Stratton versus Flair quite a bit, too.
Yeah, playing on that dynamic. But it all seemed to build towards that opener. Gunther versus Jey Uso. You could feel the excitement for that kicking things off.
Okay, so after that rundown, we get another video package, this one narrated by Triple H himself. How did this one feel different?
This felt broader, maybe. More about WrestleMania's legacy. It mixed current stars with classic moments. And celebrities, too.
Yeah, celebrities interacting with talent, holding replica belts, and The Rock showing up with that tagline, expect the unexpected.
That really hammers home the mainstream appeal, doesn't it? Like, this isn't just for wrestling fans anymore.
Integrating mainstream figures is just good promotion, draws more eyes.
And the tagline for this video was intense. It's only the beginning if you think you know the whole story. It's the realest it's ever been. What's that about, do you think?
It feels like they're signaling maybe a new era, a shift. Realest it's ever been that suggests, I don't know, more authenticity, maybe blurring kayfabe lines even more. It's designed to make you curious.
Definitely. And it ended with something like, Vegas is about to find out how real this shit can get.
Yeah, pretty blunt, leaves an impression for sure.
No kidding. Quite a shift from the City of Dreamers vibe.
And, well, what shit are we even talking about?
Okay. Then back live, and Alicia Taylor introduces Triple H to the ring. His presence adds a certain weight, doesn't it?
Oh, for sure. Having a top executive come out, welcome everyone, especially highlighting the global viewership, it just underscores the scale and importance of the event. Classic moment, gets the energy way up.
All right, so the stage is set, the intros are done, the hype is real. What about the actual look and feel? The production, the stage?
Right, the spectacle. Big pyro displays, those sweeping shots of the massive stadium crowd, and Michael Cole officially welcoming everyone as Travis Scott's Fiend, 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 Fiend starts playing.
Okay, yeah, that track definitely brings a modern high-energy feel.
And the stage itself described as a kick-ass Vegas casino theme.
Yeah.
Sounds like they really went all in on the location.
What kind of details?
Yeah.
More than just slapping some playing cards up.
Apparently, yeah. Things like lighting designed to mimic slot machines, maybe some architectural nods to famous casinos, really trying to immerse you in that Vegas atmosphere.
Nice. And I heard something about the seating being different. Fans actually above the stage.
Yeah, on an overhang. That's apparently a WrestleMania first. Creates a whole different look, gives more fans that live experience, and probably some cool camera angles for the broadcast.
Wow. Imagine that view. And even the announce discs got a makeover. Curved, maybe like poker tables.
Seems like it. Little touches like that pull the whole theme together. And then, of course, the commentary team we know. Cole, Pat McAfee, Wade Barrett. Familiar voices to guide you through it all. Okay, so you might have seen the headlines, but honestly, the way it actually happened at WrestleMania 41, night one, wow. Jey Uso, tag team guy, high energy, yeet, all that.
Yeah, not exactly the first person you think of for, like, technical submission wrestling.
Exactly. 0 wins against Gunther, 0-3 going in.
Right.
And he goes and beats Gunther, the World Heavyweight Champion Gunther, who seemed, well, unbeatable.
And how he won, that's the kicker.
By submission, he made Gunther tap out. Gunther,
Yeah.
who, when does that guy ever lose, let alone tap? So let's really dig into this. How did this even go down?
That's exactly what we're diving into today. We've gone through, the commentary, what people were saying backstage, the expert takes.
All of it.
Yeah, trying to figure out not just the result, but the story behind it. Like, why did this specific moment hit so hard, and what does it mean going forward?
Okay, let's paint the picture. WrestleMania 41, Night 1, Vegas, April 19th, 2025. And it wasn't like a standard opening, was it?
No, not at all.
You had that DJ, Salvatore Ganacci, with dancers, and there was buzz about his connection to the Saudi royal family. Turki al-Sheikh was even there, apparently. It felt different for Mania's start.
It definitely set a unique vibe right away. And then you get Jey Uso's entrance. The whole place is chanting yeet. You got the flags, the Raiders cheerleaders. But what stood out to me was Jey himself. Amidst all that noise and energy, he looked laser-focused.
Yeah.
Like he knew the mountain he had to climb.
Which was immediately contrasted by Gunther's entrance, right? The music hits, the presence. This guy's been champion for 259 days, undefeated against Jey. It felt very much like David versus Goliath.
Exactly. Pure dominance meeting, well, hope, I guess.
Yeah.
And calling it all, you had the usual crew, Michael Cole, Pat McAfee, Wade Barrett on commentary.
Setting the stage perfectly.
So the bell rings, and what hits you first?
Jey didn't wait. He just exploded out of the corner, landed an uppercut early that actually put Gunther down.
Yeah. Gunther had to roll out, regroup. Right away, you felt like, okay, this might be different.
Totally different from their other matches. Jey hit an enziguri. He even managed to, body slam Gunther at one point, which, considering the size difference, is pretty impressive. Shows grit.
That early offense was key.
Soon enough, we saw those chops, those brutal, echoing chops. Gunther also hit that suplex off the top, the running drop kick, stuff that usually ends matches.
Right. The crowd was starting to believe, could he actually do it? It really highlighted their core differences, didn't it? Gunther grinds you down, methodical punishment. Jey's about those quick bursts, those sudden impacts. But the big thing was Jey taking Gunther's best shots and just keep coming. That resilience was impressive.
Definitely surprised some people, I think.
Yeah.
Then Gunther hits a huge power bomb. Looks like it's over.
The commentary team was just going nuts by this point.
We were losing their minds. Jey hit a spear, which is kind of fun, went for the Uso splash.
His big finisher, yep.
But Gunther kicked out. Then came that really controversial bit. Gunther grabs the title belt. Looked like he was just going to walk out.
Yeah, looked like he was taking his ball and going home.
Then Jey dives out with a suicide dive, and Gunther just cracks him with the belt right in the head.
Oof.
And the ref's back was turned, or he was distracted somehow, didn't see it.
Nasty counter.
Led straight to a top rope splash from Gunther and a really, really close near fall. That felt like a turning point, like both guys were throwing out the playbook.
It really ratcheted up the drama. Showed Gunther wasn't above, bending the rules when pushed. And Jey just kept fighting back from it. The crowd was losing it then.
Oh, yeah. Edge of their seats. Then Gunther slapped on the sleeper hold, the move he beat Jey Uso with, the move he beats everyone with.
Looked like curtains, honestly. Jey's struggling, fading. He makes the ropes, gets the break, but you're thinking, okay, it's just a matter of time now.
Right. Felt inevitable.
But then something flipped. Jey gets up and he starts taunting Gunther, like letting him chop him hard. And Jey's just eating them, almost laughing.
That was wild. Pure mind games.
Yeah.
Then they're just trading shots back and forth. Jey hits a big lariat. Gunther goes for the choke again.
Trying to put him away for good this time.
But Jey counters, flips out of it, hits a German suplex, then his own powerbomb, then super kick, spear.
He was just emptying the tank, everything he had left. And then the Uso splashes. Hits one, hits another. Gunther's reeling, then a third one right to the back. You think that's the finish?
You do. You absolutely do, but it wasn't.
Nope. The finish.
Jey reverses Gunther's offense, gets him in the sleeper hold. His sleeper hold.
Turns it right back on him. Using Gunther's move.
Yeah.
And Gunther taps out. Gunther tapped.
I still can't quite believe that part. Gunther doesn't tap. Ever. And Jey winning by submission. That's not his usual way. The place must have gone insane.
And Jey himself looked like he couldn't believe it either. Just Shocked.
The match definitely surpassed what a lot of people thought it would be, especially with that ending.
In the aftermath. Then, adding to the moment, Jey Uso comes out. First time we'd seen him in weeks. They have this really emotional hug. Jimmy hands Jey the title belt. Powerful stuff, given their whole history.
Oh, man. That brother moment. That's huge. That's a WrestleMania moment right there.
For sure. And only then, after reuniting with Jimmy, does Jey finally turn to the crowd and do the yeet chant with them. Pure catharsis.
Perfect ending. Well, almost perfect. But, not everyone was 100% sold on the finish itself. Some of the post-match chatter we listened to, people felt Gunther tapping out seemed, well, maybe a little unrealistic for his character.
That's a fair point. There's always that balance in wrestling, isn't there, between the big emotional story beat and protecting a character's established persona. Did Gunther tapping slightly hurt his unstoppable aura? Some analysts definitely argue that point.
Yeah. Oh, and there was that funny little production hiccup during the replays. They accidentally showed graphics for Survivor Series War Games instead of WrestleMania.
Uh-huh. Yeah, saw that mentioned. A rare technical glitch on the biggest stage. Happens, I guess. But maybe more significant. Right after the match, Jey Uso was featured heavily in the ads, like an immediate spotlight.
They didn't waste any time elevating him, huh? So, okay, Jey's the champ. Was this just like a fluke, a lucky break, or is there a bigger strategy here? What's the analysis saying?
Well, the consensus seems to be this was a very deliberate move, a potential career-defining moment they wanted to create for Jey. Now, was the match itself an all-time technical classic? Maybe not for everyone. Some called it fine or good, maybe not great for a Mania opener.
Yeah, I saw some of that.
But it did the job it needed to do for the story. The underdog finally slaying the giant. It's a story that always works if you tell it right, and clearly it connected here.
And there's that idea that Gunther himself really worked to make Jey look good, helped carry him to that level in the match.
That's definitely being discussed. Gunther's a pro's pro. He understands the business. Making Jey look credible, absorbing that offense, taking the clean loss, even the tap out. It suggests he was fully on board with elevating Jey.
Makes sense. Okay, so the story was strong, the moment was huge. Looking beyond the match, some analysts, while loving the moment, actually thought the match itself wasn't like an all-time technical classic.
Right.
Some analysts felt it was maybe a bit underwhelming for a world title match opening WrestleMania, and that Gunther tapping felt abrupt. Unconvincing, even.
Yeah, that criticism is out there. Mania title matches carry immense expectations.
Yeah.
Some might have wanted more of a back-and-forth war, maybe a different kind of finish. Gunther tapping, especially to his own hold, while symbolically powerful, did feel a bit out of character for how unstoppable he's been built.
Which, interestingly, brings us to Dave Meltzer's review.
Okay, the contrast.
Right. He gave it 3 3/4 stars.
3 3/4.
Yeah.
That definitely stands out.
And that little difference, that fraction, that's where it gets interesting, I think.
How so?
Like, was 4 stars genuinely too high?
Ah, right. And 3 felt, I don't know, unfair, too low.
Exactly. Suggests a bit of a struggle, maybe. Trying to be really, really accurate.
That makes sense. Maybe some parts were genuinely great, 4-star stuff, but other bits
dragged it down just enough. Yeah. Which is, a good match, respectable. But his take was different from that immediate emotional high.
How so?
He saw the result as, well, maybe a bit predictable, designed specifically for that feel-good moment. Jey finally wins the big one.
Okay. I can see that viewpoint.
And he also felt the match structure itself was maybe a little too familiar, relying on those big finishing move sequences you often see in WWE main events. What do you think leads someone like Meltzer, with all his experience, to see it as predictable?
That's a fair question. I guess when you've watched thousands of matches, you start seeing patterns, right? The underdog story, the resilient comeback against the dominant champ.
Familiar tropes.
Yeah. So while it's super satisfying emotionally for lots of fans, maybe for a seasoned analyst looking for something radically new in ring, it feels familiar.
Makes sense. And he also brought up Jey Uso's recovery, how quickly he seemed to be okay after the injury angle. From a strict analysis view, maybe that weakened the storyline's realism a bit.
Right. It potentially undercut the drama they'd built.
So you've got this amazing emotional wave in the moment versus a more detached look at the story beats and the match construction. It just shows how different people watch and appreciate wrestling for different reasons.
Definitely.
So why? Why make the switch now? What are the behind-the-scenes reasons we might be looking at?
Probably a mix of things. Jey Uso is undeniably popular right now. Hugely over. That yeet thing is everywhere.
March sales gotta be good.
Yeah.
Exactly. Merchandise, crowd reactions, online buzz. He connects. And clearly, there's a push to solidify him as a main event guy, a top star. Beating Gunther, especially in this faction, is a massive rocket strap, even if maybe his pure in-ring work isn't always seen on par with, say, Gunther's level.
It's a faster way to get him there.
Right. And we've seen Rumble winners open Mania before and get that big win. It capitalizes on the momentum.
And that finish, the sleeper hold, that had to be intentional storytelling, right? Referencing Jimmy.
Oh, absolutely. That's layered storytelling. It's revenge, it's poetic justice, it's Jey using the monster's own weapon against him, plus him using other Gunther moves throughout the match. It showed he'd studied, he'd prepared, he was ready to beat Gunther at his own game.
It really is the culmination of a long journey for Jey, isn't it? Thinking back to the start of the Bloodline stuff in 2020.
It's been a slow burn, yeah. From being Roman's right-hand man to breaking away, finding himself as a singles guy, getting the crowd behind him organically, and now this. World Heavyweight Champion. It's a hell of an arc.
So the million-dollar question then, how long does this reign last? Are we looking at another Kofi Mania situation where it's an amazing moment, but maybe a shorter run?
That's the big debate, isn't it? The Kofi comparison keeps coming up. Sometimes these massive feel-good wins are more about the moment itself than launching a long, dominant reign. Jey's super popular now, but can he sustain that at the very top week after week? A lot of people are speculating it might be a shorter reign, maybe dropping the belt by SummerSlam.
Interesting. So the moment was the goal.
Potentially. Making the moment memorable might have been priority one.
That makes sense. And people are already talking about who's next for Jey, Seth Rollins, maybe Sami Zayn if he comes back. There's definitely debate about how long this reign might last.
It puts Jey in a really interesting spot.
And what about Gunther? That's 2 Mania losses now in 3 years. For a guy built like an absolute tank, that's kind of surprising. Does it hurt his aura?
It could, if they're not careful.
Yeah.
You build someone up as invincible, losses on the biggest stage chip away at that. Losing to elevate Jey makes sense in isolation, but yeah, consecutive Mania losses isn't ideal for the ring general. His next storyline, how he bounces back, will be really important to reestablish that dominant presence.
Definitely something to watch.
Oh, and quick side note, did you see Rick Rubin was there? And Chris Angel, George Kittle too.
Yeah, always some celebs at Mania. But yeah, back to Jey and Gunther. The big takeaways are just Jey winning, the submission finish using Gunther's move, that incredible moment with Jimmy.
And the mixed reactions afterwards.
Yeah.
The debate about match quality versus the sheer size of the moment, and the questions about Gunther tapping.
What do you think happens next? What's Jey's future as champion look like? And maybe just as important, where does Gunther go from here after a loss like that?
Yeah, how does this change things for me? Really makes you think about that blend of skill, popularity, and pure storyline drama that makes wrestling so, well, captivating.
Today we're heading straight into the squared circle.
Yeah, could be a good one.
We're going to dissect the World Tag Team Championship match between the War Raiders and the New Day. This was from WrestleMania 41, Night 1, April 19th, 2025.
Right, and, you know, whether you're someone who follows wrestling super closely, like knows every single move, or maybe you just catch the big events sometimes, we're really aiming to give you a, let's say, a richer picture of this specific match.
Yeah, kind of go beyond just who won or lost, right? Look at what was really going on.
Exactly. More than just the suplexes and pinfalls. We want to understand what made this whole thing, well, tick.
Okay, so let's jump right into the setup then, the backstory. Because this match, it didn't come out of nowhere.
Not at all.
The New Day, they had gone through a pretty major shift, hadn't they, leading up to Mania.
Oh, yeah. The heel turn, they were the bad guys now, which was quite a change for them.
And their attitude, especially towards Big E, their former partner who was out injured, that was, well, noticeable.
It really was. And the commentary team, they jumped on that immediately. I think Wade Barrett said something like, this could be the start of a frightening new day.
Yeah, I remember that. Sets a tone, doesn't it?
It really does. And it wasn't just talk either. They showed that video package before the match. And it really hammered home this, like, darker side they were showing. And you could hear the crowd reacting negatively, too. People weren't used to this New Day.
Totally. A huge departure from the, pancakes and positivity.
Right. And this new edge, this aggression, it directly fueled the feud with the War Raiders. It got personal.
Especially with the accusations about Eric's neck, right?
Exactly. The War Raiders were saying the New Day were deliberately targeting Eric's surgically repaired neck. That adds a whole different layer, much nastier than just wanting the titles.
Definitely ups the stakes.
And then you layer on top of that, the New Day demanding the match basically declaring themselves the greatest tag team ever.
Big claim.
Huge claim, especially against the War Raiders, who were the dominant champs at the time. So it became this clash of legacy versus dominance, all centered around those World Tag Team titles.
And for the New Day, it was more than just a title match. They were chasing history, weren't they?
They were, gunning for a record-breaking 12th tag team title reign, which is, I mean, incredible.
But the commentary also brought up their individual WrestleMania records. Woods and Kofi didn't exactly have winning records on the biggest stage.
No, Woods was 0-6, Kofi, I think, 2-3 going in, something like that. So you wonder, did that add a sense of, like, desperation?
That's a good question. Did that pressure maybe push them towards, well, the tactics we saw later?
It could have. You know, feeling that weight, needing that Mania win, maybe makes you bend the rules a bit more. Adds another wrinkle to their motivation anyway.
Okay, let's shift to the entrances. Because WrestleMania is all about the spectacle, right?
Absolutely. The entrances are huge.
And the New Day, their entrance attire was something else.
Yeah.
Very deliberate.
Yeah, that giant Gonzalez tribute.
Right.
From WrestleMania 9, also in Vegas.
Yeah.
The airbrush muscles, everything. It was certainly a choice.
A deep cut for wrestling fans.
For sure. And Barrett pointed out another detail on their jackets, that three-headed unicorn logo.
Yeah.
One of the heads looked kind of withered, decayed almost, symbolizing Big E being out. A visual representation of their change and his absence.
Wow, that's quite layered. And they even got into it a bit with George Kittle at ringside.
Yeah, just a brief argument, added a bit of spontaneous heat, you know.
And then you clip to the War Raiders. Totally different vibe.
Completely. They came out dressed as Clash of Clans characters. Eric as the Barbarian King, Ivar as Pekka.
Which Pat McAfee seemed very excited about explaining on commentary.
He did. He went into all the details about the game, the characters.
Yeah.
It really highlighted the contrast, didn't it? New Day referencing wrestling history, War Raiders referencing, well, a mobile game.
It's kind of funny, given the New Day's whole up-to-up, down-down gaming channel thing.
Right. You might have expected them to do a gaming entrance. But yeah, these contrasting presentations really set the stage, I think. Showed two teams in very different headspaces.
Okay, so entrance is done, bell rings,
Yeah.
and bam, instant action.
Yeah, no feeling out process. New Day just ambushed Eric right away.
Set the tone immediately, like you said, maybe that desperation kicking in.
Could be. Or just wanting to seize control against powerful opponents. But yeah, it was aggressive from second one.
And the intensity just kept going. I mean, Eric using Kofi as a weapon against Wood.
Yeah, like a battering ram.
Yeah.
And then that body slam, Eric slamming Ivar onto both New Day guys on the floor. That was a big impact moment.
And Ivar flying into the LED board with that crossbody. These guys were leaving it all out there.
Definitely. The reports really emphasized the nonstop pace. You had the War Raiders hitting that assisted flying sledge, and Woods cutting off Eric's suicide dive, Kofi doing that crazy senton bomb onto the ring apron.
Oh, just ow.
Yeah, it was physical.
Ugh.
Both teams just absorbing and dishing out punishment. You could see this is a championship fight.
And like we mentioned before, as it went on, you saw New Day zeroing in on Eric's neck.
Tying right back into that pre-match story.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't just throwing moves. There was a strategy there, a mean streak maybe.
But even with that, Ivar was just incredible.
A beast. For his size, the stuff he does, the running crossbody splash, that leaping seated senton, the handspring double back elbow.
The handspring always gets me. How does he do that?
Right. And he almost hit a tiger driver. You just don't see that from guys built like him. Shows his incredible athleticism. These moments really kept the energy up.
Totally. And so many moments where you thought, okay, this is it. Near falls galore. Woods hitting the honor roll.
Always get the pop.
Then Kofi lands Trouble in Paradise on Eric. Looked like it might be over.
But then Ivar comes flying in with a spinning heel kick, and then the moonsault. The doom salt.
Though commentary mentioned he almost slipped on that, right? Added a bit of realism, maybe?
Yeah, a little wobble. A reminder that these high-risk moves are actually, well, high risk.
And Woods kept breaking up pins with the limit break, elbow drop, just constant back and forth, neither team staying down.
The resilience was key. That forearm exchange late in the match, too. Just slugging it out. Pure exhaustion and will.
Then Eric counters the honor roll with that vicious full Nelson knee lift. Sets up the death row.
Looked like that might be the end for sure.
But it wasn't. Because the finish, well, that's what got everyone talking, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. After Kofi breaks up the Viking experience, Woods hits a big boot, then they hit their finisher, the Daylight.
Up, up, down, down.
Right. But the key was, as Woods made the pin on Ivar, the replay showed Kofi clearly holding Ivar's legs down from the outside.
So he couldn't kick out. Blatant interference.
Yep. And that's how they won the titles.
Which, I mean, perfectly plays into their new characters, right?
Exactly. It's designed to get that reaction. Michael Cole called it highway robbery. Kind of summed it up. It cements them as villains. Makes you question the win.
Very effective heel tactic.
For sure. Is it the kind of win that, endears them to people? Probably not. But it gets people talking, and it fits the story they're telling now. Adds intrigue to their title reign.
And they didn't stick around to celebrate, did they?
No. Grabbed the belts and got out of there fast. Almost like they knew they'd pulled a fast one.
In a purely strategic sense, like maybe this win justifies it. Ditching Big E was the right move for them in their minds.
That's the implication, yeah. And immediately, the talk starts. Are the New Day back in the greatest of all time tag team conversation? But now there's this, cloud over it because of how they won.
An asterisk next to the win.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But, not everyone was completely blown away by the match itself, regardless of the finish.
Right, I saw some of that talk too.
And some critics felt it was, good, but maybe not WrestleMania good. More like a really strong main event for Raw, their weekly show.
Okay. Why do you think that was the take for some?
Concerns were raised that maybe the match structure was a bit basic, and that the crowd, the live audience, wasn't quite as electric as for some other matches on the card.
Maybe the focus on the heel turn story overshadowed the in-ring stuff for some people. Or maybe the finish, not being clean, left them feeling a bit flat for a Mania title change.
Could be either, or both. Dave Meltzer looked at this match.
Yes. The star ratings.
He gave it 2 3/4 stars. Called it fine, basically. Felt more like a standard TV match than a big WrestleMania epic.
Which is interesting because it felt pretty dramatic watching it unfold with all the story context.
Right. So Meltzer's rating, focusing maybe more on the pure in-ring work rate perhaps, seems a bit detached from the narrative intensity we saw. Different ways to evaluate a match, I guess.
Definitely. His focus might be different. Did it hit those high spots, the complex sequences you expect in a top-tier Mania match?
No.
Maybe he felt it didn't, even with the story.
There was also some chatter about, why this match was on WrestleMania when a big gimmick match, a TLC match for the other tag titles, happened on TV instead. Leading some to feel maybe the WWE tag titles weren't being presented as quite as big a deal. That's a perception thing, I guess. And the match length, just over 9 minutes, maybe that contributed too. Felt a bit short for an epic Mania title bout to some.
Right. Context is everything.
Yeah.
And speaking of context, WrestleMania 41 itself. We heard Ariel's coverage was brought to us by Goodyear.
Yeah, celebrating their 100th anniversary, apparently. Big milestone.
It's a whole spectacle.
It is, and you see the sponsors woven in, like the Clash of Clans ads with wrestlers, the Snickers ad with Jey Uso. That's part of the big event feel.
Plus the celebrities dotted around, O'Shea Jackson Jr., Michael Che, Jelly Roll again. It shows the crossover appeal.
Yeah, definitely. Even a theme song, Timeless by The Weeknd and Playboy Cardi, adds to that big show atmosphere. But, do those surrounding elements really change how we view the match itself in the long run?
That's a good point. They add flavor, maybe, build the hype.
Right. They create the event feel, the grandeur. But years from now, people will remember the match, the story, the finish, more than the specific sponsor, probably. The wrestling part tends to endure.
Okay, let's unpack this. WrestleMania 41, Night 1. Naomi versus Jade Cargill.
Yeah.
Forget your typical grudge match. This felt like a force of nature colliding with just pure determination.
Absolutely. Former allies, right?
Yeah.
And now torn apart by, what commentators were calling envy and betrayal.
Exactly. It set up Cargill looking for some serious payback after getting attacked, blindsided, really.
While Naomi's trying to, prove herself with this new, much edgier persona after that heel turn.
What's fascinating right from the start is that this wasn't just like a random match thrown together.
No, not at all. The bad blood was palpable. You could feel it.
Yeah.
And they really hammered that home in the pre-match commentary and the video packages.
Gave the whole thing a deeper emotional weight, didn't it?
Definitely.
So let's rewind just a bit. What sparked this whole thing between them? The audio commentary and those video packages really laid it out.
It all traces back to Naomi's heel turn. That shift from being a fan favorite to, the villain.
And the attack on Cargill that followed.
Ambushed, hit from behind, thrown onto a car. That's personal.
Very physical, yeah. And then seeing Naomi running away, that image really cements the betrayal from Cargill's point of view.
Totally. And the commentators, they were even speculating about Naomi's reasons for turning heel.
Sounded like insecurity was a big factor, maybe feeling overshadowed, like the third wheel in that old alliance.
Possibly that. And maybe wanting those tag titles for herself. It paints a picture of a character needing recognition, wanting that spotlight.
And just for anyone less familiar, a heel turn is basically when a wrestler goes from being the good guy, the face, to being the bad guy, the heel.
Right. And it's interesting because, wrestling storylines often tap into those very human things.
Yeah.
Jealousy, ambition, feeling overlooked adds layers.
It does. It makes it more than just athletics. Then we get to the entrances, which were, well, they weren't standard, were they?
Not at all.
Mm.
Naomi's especially felt really symbolic, ripping through that banner.
It was written on it, caution tape and things like that.
Yeah, too nice, third wheel, underappreciated, proceed with caution. Stuff like that. It was a very visual way of saying, I'm shedding that old skin.
Embracing the new aggressive identity. Pretty powerful storytelling, actually.
He really was.
And Cargill's entrance, the whole WrestleMania weather report with Jim Cantor.
Yeah, forecasting a storm over Vegas.
Yeah.
It was quite something.
Unexpected, definitely.
But you have to admire the commitment to the spectacle, right? Stormy graphics, Cantor playing it up, taking cover.
It was pure theater. And it immediately told you Cargill's arrival was a big deal. Cole even said on commentary, it will not be pretty.
Set the stage perfectly.
So the bell rings, match starts.
Jade came out like a house on fire.
Absolutely. Straight into a double leg takedown, ground and pound. Just pure aggression right from the bell. She was clearly fired up.
But Naomi didn't just roll over. She fought back pretty quick.
She showed that resilience, yeah. Took the hits, fired back with strikes.
And there were some big power moves from Jade too, right?
Oh, for sure. The press slam off the top rope. Incredible strength. And that big heel throw just launching Naomi across the ring. Real power display.
But Naomi used her speed and, well, maybe some sneakiness. The eye rake.
Yeah. Classic heel move when the ref wasn't looking. And then that draping X Factor on the floor. Nasty looking move using the ropes.
Yeah, that looked like it hurt.
Followed it up with that baseball slide drop kick and then the blockbuster off the ring steps. That was pretty impactful, too.
It felt like the momentum was really swinging back and forth. Lots of counters.
Definitely. Like Naomi dodging the spine buster. That's a big move to avoid.
Mm.
And then Jade catching Naomi out of that flying crossbody attempt and turning it into a fallaway slam showed great timing from both.
And those near falls. Those always get the crowd going.
Oh, yeah. After Naomi hit that head scissors bulldog, then the split leg moonsault. People bought those as finishes.
And later, when Jade hit the jackhammer, same thing. Huge reaction. You thought it might be over then.
Absolutely. Those moments really hook you in. And the actual finish was pretty dramatic, too.
Naomi locked in her submission. The rings of Saturn. Right.
She did, yeah. Looked like she had it cinched in, but Jade just powered out. Incredible strength again. Then lifted Naomi up from a fireman's carry.
Into that rotating powerbomb. That was impressive.
Super impressive. The analyst pointed to that specific move as a real highlight. And then, bam, jaded. That was it. Pinfall victory for Cargill.
Quite the sequence.
Yeah.
So what were the commentators and analysts saying overall, beyond just calling the moves?
Well, there was a lot of talk about the contrast. Jade's raw power and physique versus Naomi's veteran experience, especially at WrestleMania. This was Jade's singles debut on that stage, remember?
Right, the powerhouse newcomer versus the established star taking a new path. Did they critique the match at all?
Some did, yeah. A few analysts felt the pacing was a bit off in places. Called out some weird slow spots was the phrase used, I think.
Okay. But the big moments still connected.
Seems like it. They consistently mentioned the crowd reactions to the big moves, the near falls, so even if the flow wasn't perfect, the audience was definitely invested when it counted.
What about individual performances? Any specific praise or criticism?
They talked about Jade's making Naomi's moves look convincing. Some felt maybe that could be developed a bit more. On the flip side, Naomi got a lot of props for her heel work, really committing to that new persona.
Yeah, sounds like she embraced being the bad guy. Was there any debate about the result? Like, should Naomi have won?
Yeah, there was some discussion. First big match as a heel, maybe a win would have cemented that turn more strongly from a story perspective.
Makes sense.
But the general feeling seemed to be that Jade winning felt like the right payoff for the story they'd built. The revenge angle needed that resolution.
Right. The betrayal narrative kind of demanded it. So
Yeah.
where do they go from here? Any speculation from the experts?
Definitely. Talk about what's next for both of them. Bianca Belair's name came up as someone who might get involved down the line, potentially with Jade. This match was seen as setting up future directions for both women.
Always looking ahead in WWE.
So that's the match, as told by the broadcast. But now, let's bring in this other perspective. Dave Meltzer's review.
Ah, yes. The star ratings.
2 stars, which
Yeah.
is, well, it's quite a bit different from the commentary's excitement.
A very different assessment, yeah.
Yeah.
It's always interesting to get that more critical breakdown focused purely on the in-ring stuff.
He basically said it wasn't very exciting. Acknowledged Cargill's power moves looked good, well executed.
Okay, so he gave her that.
But then he called her very tentative and sloppy. That's pretty blunt.
Tentative and sloppy.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's looking at maybe the timing, the transitions between moves. Maybe things didn't look quite as smooth or impactful to his eye.
Could be footwork, positioning,
Yeah.
maybe moments that just looked a bit awkward. Things a more critical analysis picks up.
Right, the little things that can break the flow for someone watching that closely.
He also made a really interesting point, said that Cargill isn't seen as this, like, gigantic novelty anymore.
Ah, the novelty wearing off idea.
Yeah. And because of that, her weaknesses are maybe becoming more obvious. It's fascinating how that perception changes, right?
It really is. When someone bursts onto the scene with that size and power, it can mask other things, but as they stick around, face more varied opponents.
People start looking closer at the technique.
Exactly. The fundamentals become more important. Can they sustain it beyond just the initial wow factor?
He even pointed out specific moments. A missed dropkick from Naomi that Cargill apparently sold anyway.
Ooh, okay. That can definitely pull you out of it if you notice.
And Cargill struggling a bit, apparently, lifting Naomi for that final jaded power bomb.
Right. So maybe suggesting fatigue or just not quite having the technique perfectly nailed down on that big move under pressure. Details a casual fan might miss, but Meltzer's looking for that stuff.
It's just such a night and day difference from the commentary calling it a star-making moment for Cargill.
Outer worldly athleticism, I think you said.
Yeah. It just shows how subjective this all can be, doesn't it?
Totally. Commentary's there to sell the story, the emotion, build the stars for the live audience. A critic like Meltzer is evaluating it on a different scale, more technically focused. Both valid perspectives, just different goals.
The commentary was definitely pushing the character arcs, too.
Yeah.
Naomi growing in confidence despite the loss. Cargill's huge potential.
Guiding the narrative, telling you where these characters are going, investing you in their journeys. Okay, so after the match wrapped up, what else was going on? Big WrestleMania weekend, always lots happening.
For sure. Right after they aired an ad for the Fatal Fury game and also plugged SummerSlam later in the year, featuring Cardi B as host. That was the big announcement.
Keep the hype train rolling. Any celebrity sightings, it's always part of the Mania spectacle.
Oh, yeah. They showed Lily Singh, Lil Yachty in the crowd. Adds to that big event feel, you know.
Absolutely. All right, let's unpack what went down in the United States Championship match. This was WrestleMania 41, Night 1, LA Knight, the champ then, versus Jacob Fatu, the challenger. And the whole thing felt charged right from the start, didn't it? Because you've got these two guys who are just polar opposites almost.
Totally.
LA Knight, he's got all that swagger, the crowd behind him. The chants were, well, they were loud. And he's up against Jacob Fatu, who just gives off this, like, wild, unpredictable vibe, a real savage energy.
Yeah, and it all led to a pretty big moment for the U.S. title, didn't it? The title change.
It sure did.
Yeah.
But let's back up a bit. Even the entrances kind of told the story. You know?
Oh, definitely. That's a great point. They really telegraphed a lot about who these characters are.
Right. So LA Knight rolls up in a Maserati. I mean, that's just peak megastar, isn't it? Such a statement. The crowd ate it up.
Absolutely. It's visual shorthand, right? It says, I'm rich, I'm famous, I'm the star. It just reinforces everything he says about himself.
And then you get Fatu.
Yeah, totally different vibe. He comes out wearing this intense werewolf mask, and he's with Solo Sikoa.
Right, and Solo takes the mask, heads to the back.
And immediately you're thinking, okay, what's going to happen here? Is Solo going to interfere? It creates this this sense of unease.
Even though he didn't actually get involved later.
Exactly. But that initial moment, that bit of mystery, it just added to Fatu's whole unpredictable aura, you know?
Definitely set a different tone. Okay, so the bell rings. Knight comes out hot.
Yeah.
Lots of strikes, shoulder blocks. He hit that leaping neck breaker pretty early. Looked like he wanted to set the pace fast.
Yeah, that makes sense for him. Use his speed, his agility, try and overwhelm Fatu maybe, keep him off balance.
But Fatu, well, he's just a powerhouse, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. He weathered that initial storm and then boom, that pop-up Samoan drop just out of nowhere.
A real reminder of that explosive strength.
And it was interesting, Knight went for the BFT, his finisher, really early.
He did.
And Fatu just blocked it, shut it down.
Right away, that tells you, okay, this isn't going to be easy for Knight. Hitting his big move might be a struggle.
Exactly. Establish that dynamic right there.
So then we got some back and forth. Knight hit a drop kick to Fatu's knee. Then that wrecking ball drop kick sending Fatu outside. Knight trying to use his speed again. Target the legs, maybe.
Seems like it. Smart strategy, trying to ground the bigger man. But Fatu's agility is just, it's kind of unreal for a guy his size.
Like that moment, Knight went for a dive. Was it off the top?
I think so, yeah. And Fatu just plucked him out of the air. Pow. Power slam.
Oof. That stops your momentum dead, doesn't it?
Completely. Just total control shift right there.
But then, Fatu goes for that running sentence splash.
And Knight gets the knees up.
Yes. The counters in this match were relentless. Both guys seemed really prepared for what the other might throw at them.
Oh, absolutely. You could tell they'd scouted each other. They knew the counters were coming. It speaks volumes about their ring IQ.
And then we get to that really key sequence. Fatu tries the pop-up Samoan drop again,
Yeah.
but this time, Knight twists out of it. Counters into a crucifix bomb.
Beautiful counter. Just smooth.
And then immediately follows up, launches Fatu shoulder first into the ring post. That felt huge.
Oh, it was. It felt like maybe that was Knight's big opening. He neutralized one of Fatu's signature power moves and inflicted some real damage with that ring post shot.
You felt it too, right? And then he hits the megastar elbow. The crowd went nuts. I thought that was it.
Me too. Classic Knight sequence. Looked like the finish.
But Fatu kicks out. Just sheer resilience. What does a near fall like that do? It just ramps everything up, doesn't it?
Totally elevates the drama, makes you buy into the struggle even more. You start thinking, okay, what's it actually going to take to win this?
And Fatu proves he's still in it. Comes back with those big thrust kicks, the hip attacks.
Yeah.
Sets up the swanton bomb.
Another year fall.
Right. It was just back and forth, edge of your seat stuff.
A real roller coaster, like you said.
Okay, then comes the moment. I think everyone thought this was the end. Fatu goes up for the double jump moonsault.
Which is just insane athleticism for a man that size.
Unbelievable. But as he's in midair, Knight pops up and catches him with the BFT.
Right out of the air. The timing.
The place must have exploded. What was your first thought?
That's it. Game over. I mean, how often do you see a counter that spectacular actually fail to get the pin? It looked perfect.
It really did. But somehow Fatu gets a hand on the bottom rope.
Just barely. Breaks the pin. You could almost see the disbelief on Knight's face.
Oh, yeah. How crucial was that rope break looking back?
Absolutely pivotal. It kept the match alive for Fatu, obviously, but it also maybe planted that seed of doubt for Knight. Like, what else do I have to do?
Maybe made him a bit desperate.
Yeah.
And maybe that desperation created the opening Fatu needed for the actual finish.
Could be, because what came next was just brutal.
Yeah. Fatu hits that running senton while Knight is draped over the top rope.
Ouch. That looked nasty.
Then drags him up, hits the Samoan drop from the top rope.
Adding insult to injury there. Serious impact.
And then, just to make absolutely sure, not one, but two double jump moonsaults.
Back to back. That was definitive. No kicking out of that. 1, 2, 3. New champion.
Wow. Just recapping it. What a match. The styles were just night and day, weren't they?
Completely. You had Knight with his, agility, his signature spots, the charisma against Fatu's pure power, but also that surprising speed and just wild, unpredictable offense. You never quite knew what Fatu was going to pull out next.
And the commentary guys, they mentioned Knight had wrestled twice the night before. Do you think fatigue played a part maybe late in the match?
It's hard to say for sure, but you've got to think it's a factor, right? Wrestling at that level 2 nights in a row, especially at WrestleMania, it takes a toll.
Yeah, fair enough.
And Fatu just has this reputation, doesn't he? He's like a shark, always moving forward, relentless pressure. He's just incredibly difficult to stop once he gets going.
And the crowd, what did you make of their reaction? It seemed kind of mixed at first, maybe leaning Knight.
A little bit, yeah. But as the match went on, they got more and more into the action itself. You started hearing those dueling chants.
Right.
And by the end, when Fatu won, it felt like a genuinely positive reaction. Like they respected the hell out of the performance he put on.
Yeah, it felt like the match itself won them over.
Yeah.
The sheer physicality and drama.
Definitely. It suggests the story they told in the ring really connected. And that finish, like we said, those final moves were so impactful. No question about who won.
And then seeing Haku come out to celebrate with Fatu. That was a cool moment.
Yeah, really nice touch. Emphasizes that whole Anoa'i family legacy, connects him to that history.
And it's a huge deal for Fatu personally, right? His first singles championship in WWE.
Massive. And looking at the analysis, Meltzer's rating reflects a strong match, 3 3/4 stars. That's a really good match.
Definitely.
It really feels like it could be the start of something big for him, a new chapter.
Which leads to the question, what is next? People are already talking main event potential. But he's positioned as a heel, a bad guy.
Right.
And yet the fans seem to really enjoy watching him. It's that cool factor, maybe, that destructive style. How do they keep him as a heel if people are cheering him?
That's the tricky part, isn't it? Sometimes a villain gets so good, so compelling, that it's hard to keep the crowd booing them. They might have to lean into the savage aspect more, the sheer destruction, to maintain that heel edge, make him truly dangerous.
Interesting challenge for them. So, okay, let's wrap this part up. The bottom line. Jacob Fatu pins LA Knight, becomes the new United States champion at WrestleMania 41.
Yep. A really hard-hitting match, great showcase of their different styles, back-and-forth action, and ultimately a decisive title change that the crowd seemed to embrace. Okay, so WrestleMania 41, wow, it really threw us a curveball, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. We were all set for Rey Mysterio versus El Grande Americano.
Yeah, the legend versus this Enigma, right?
Exactly. And then, boom, injury happens. Friday Night SmackDown, I think.
That's right. Turns out it was a torn groin. Rey confirmed it later himself. So the whole match card gets tossed up.
It really did. And what we got instead was, well, honestly, pretty captivating. El Grande Americano versus Rey Fenix.
Totally unexpected, but yeah, it delivered. High octane, loads of intrigue.
Which is exactly what we're diving into today. And the bigger picture stuff, too, especially with WWE buying AAA. That's huge.
Huge. Okay, so let's start with the replacement. How did that all go down?
Well, they announced it on the kickoff show. Plain and simple. Rey Mysterio, not medically cleared.
Big disappointment for Rey's fans, obviously.
For sure. But it opened the door for Rey Fenix. And this wasn't just some random fill-in. Fenix had beef with Americano.
Ah, right. Because Americano attacked Mysterio and Dragon Lee during his debut, didn't he?
Exactly. So Fenix had a score to settle right there on the WrestleMania stage.
And Fenix, he'd been tearing it up on SmackDown since he arrived. Just electric performances.
Totally. You could tell people were hyped for his WrestleMania debut. Even the commentators, Cole, McAfee, Barrett, they sounded genuinely excited to see him perform.
Yeah, you could feel that buzz. Americano's entrance.
Oh, boy. The mariachi band all wearing his masks. Quite a visual spectacle.
And the announcement from the Gulf of America.
Huh. Yeah, Cole jumped right on that, corrected it to Gulf of Mexico. But you gotta wonder, was that a slip or?
Or maybe deliberate. Kind of like some of that weird promo stuff we saw for him.
Could be, could be. Adds to the whole mystique, I guess. But then, even before the match, more drama. The King goes in the front row.
Whoa, okay. And this was after the AAA acquisition news broke earlier that day, right?
Precisely. So, having a major AAA star like Vikingo right there, it felt significant.
And didn't they have a little interaction?
He did. Americano goes over, there's a shove, Vikingo kicks him. Definitely planted a seed for something down the line.
Man, so much going on before the bell even rings.
Tell me about it. And then when it did ring,
yeah,
action, immediately.
Fenix just exploded out of the corner. That roll through Hurricanrana for a near fall, like seconds in.
Insane pace, showcasing that lucha agility right away. Springboard Hurricanrana, missile drop kick. Just wow.
But Americano, he's not just theatrics, is he? He's got power.
Oh, yeah. That released German suplex.
Brutal.
And those big haymakers he was throwing. Definitely grounded Fenix for a bit.
Looked like you might just steamroll him there for a second. He hit that bridging Northern Lights suplex, too.
But Fenix, man, he's got so much heart. Fought back with that headbutt, the flying arm drag, the double foot stomp.
That rebound spinning heel kick looked nasty. Thought that might be it.
Me too.
Yeah.
But then, Americano pulls out that move.
Yeah.
The 450 sentence splash.
I know. From him. Like, where did that come from? Absolutely stunning. You just don't expect that kind of high flying from a guy built like him.
Total shocker.
Yeah.
But, okay, the real turning point, the moment that kind of defined the match's narrative.
Going for the mask.
Yep. Americano trying to rip off Fenix's mask. Huge disrespect in lucha culture. You know, it's like trying to strip away their identity.
And Phoenix fired up, leaping boot, then that fire driver. That was close.
So close. The crowd totally bought it as the finish. Felt like the upset was right there.
It really did. But then, Americano shoves him off the top rope, and this is where it gets dirty.
Uh-huh. Referee's distracted, or just doesn't see it.
Yeah.
Americano slips something into his mask. Looked like a steel plate.
Classic heel move, just totally underhanded.
And Phoenix has no idea, right? He goes for the roll through Hurricane Rana again, then connects with his finisher, the goodbye Americano kick.
And bam! Hits the plate. You saw his ankle just buckle. Instant pain.
Awful. Just awful luck after fighting so hard. And Americano, like a shark smelling blood, just latches on with the ankle lock.
Phoenix tried to roll through, bless him, but that ankle was clearly shot.
Yeah, no leverage. Then Americano ducks a clothesline, uses that loaded mask for a headbutt. Sickening thud.
And the commentary team called it out immediately, right? Call it cheating.
Oh, yeah. They weren't subtle. Cole was pretty explicit about the foreign object.
Yeah.
Then the diving headbutt for the win. Done.
All over in what, under 8 minutes or something?
Yeah, quick but packed with story. And the crowd let Americano have it. Boos all around.
Deservedly so. But the commentary, they were also talking about something else during the match. The whole, is it Chad Gable thing?
Right. That speculation is just refusing to die down.
Right.
They mentioned his build, some of the moves like that reverse German.
Yeah, and wasn't there talk about him maybe doing a 540 backflip or something, even if he didn't actually hit it in the mat?
Exactly. It just keeps fueling that theory. Is Americano just a Gable under a mask?
It's
a hot topic.
Definitely. And it ties into that whole presentation, the AI video package with the dubbed Spanish, the kind of stereotypical stuff.
Mariachi band.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's walking a line, isn't it? Is it funny wrestling heel stuff, or is it kind of...
It sparked debate, for sure.
Yeah. About cultural sensitivity versus just, you know, wrestling theatrics.
It's a tricky balance, especially now with the global reach and, well, the AAA deal.
Speaking of which, after the match, Vikingo gets involved again.
Yeah, he came straight into the ring, helped Phoenix up. A clear sign of respect, maybe solidarity.
Or setting up that future match we talked about, Vikingo versus Americano.
Feels like it. And imagine the optics on this happening with the AAA dignitaries right there at ringside. Maricela Pena, Dorian Pena.
Yeah, Alberto Faisha Cohen, too. What must they have been thinking watching this, well, this kind of mocked-up luchador cheat to beat one of their own top guys?
Awkward is probably an understatement.
Yeah.
Raises questions about how this integration is going to look, doesn't it?
It does. But then they also announced that Worlds Collide show for June featuring WWE and AAA talent. Right. So despite the potentially weird finish here, they're clearly moving forward with collaboration. This AAA acquisition, it's genuinely shaking up the entire Lucha Libre world. People are already wondering who else WWE might snap up.
It's going to be fascinating to watch. Okay, and just to circle back on the injury that started all this, Rey Mysterio.
Right, the confirmation came through. Torn groin happened in that 6-man tag on SmackDown.
Yeah.
Just bad timing.
Really unlucky.
Now let's bring in Meltzer's review. What was his overall take?
Well, star rating-wise, he gave it 2 3/4 stars, which for WrestleMania is okay, but not great.
Yeah, kind of middling. And his main critique was?
He felt it lacked drama, just didn't quite connect or build the way he thought it could have. He wasn't fully invested in the story they told in the ring.
Interesting. Did he comment on the replacement situation? Phoenix stepping in?
He did, and this is where it gets into booking strategy. He actually thought Dragon Lee would have been a better choice.
Dragon Lee. Why him?
Because Dragon Lee already had a storyline reason to go after El Grande Americano. Remember, Americano attacked him during his initial debut segment.
Oh, right. I'd forgotten that connection.
So Meltzer felt using Dragon Lee would have continued an existing story. Plus, he pointed out the brand split issue Phoenix with SmackDown, and Americano wrestles on the Raw brand.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense from a storyline continuity perspective.
And his other point was about protecting Rey Phoenix. Phoenix had been built up as undefeated, right? So having him lose here maybe wasn't the best move strategically for his character's momentum.
It's a fair point. You want to protect your rising stars.
Exactly. Meltzer's looking at the long game, the booking logic behind the match. But yeah, it gave Phoenix this huge, if ultimately heartbreaking, WrestleMania moment.
Shows how fast things can change in this business. Completely unpredictable.
On a lighter note, did you catch Shawn Michaels announcing the attendance?
Yeah, 61,467. And him joking about needing large print on the card. You could tell it had been a long day for everyone behind the scenes.
Definitely. Felt very relatable, and there were some celebs spotted too, weren't there?
Yeah, Dana White was there. Got a few boos, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Stephen Amell, too, and Israel Adesanya.
Always cool to see who shows up for Mania. Still the biggest show in town.
It really is. So, key takeaways. We had a massive last-minute WrestleMania switch because of Rey's injury.
Yep. Rey Fenix stepped in, had an incredible showing against El Grande Americano, but lost thanks to some dirty tricks with that steel plate. Very controversial finish.
And the whole thing played out just hours after WWE announced they bought AAA. Huge news with massive implications.
Plus the ongoing mystery of who Americano really is, Gable or not. And the questions around his whole gimmick. It was a night full of unexpected twists.
Definitely. So I guess the big question hanging in the air now is, how is this WWE AAA thing going to change wrestling?
Yeah, and what does a match like this, with its finish and the characters involved, tell us about how Lucha Libre might be presented within WWE going forward?
It's that mix, isn't it? Entertainment, culture, business strategy, all mashed together.
Absolutely. There's a lot for you, the listener, to chew on there. How does this all sit with you?
Good question. Definitely something to keep thinking about. And, you know, we'll be back to dive into whatever happens next in this constantly changing wrestling world.
So as you mull all this over, here's something to really think about. Nobody blackballs El Grande Americano. I blackball you. Wow. Can you believe the buzz still surrounding that WWE Women's Championship match? WrestleMania 41, Night 1.
I know, right? Tiffany Stratton versus Charlotte Flair, April 19th, 2025, Las Vegas. It definitely left people talking.
It really did, and that's what we're doing today, really digging into what actually went down.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's set the scene, because even before the bell rang, you could feel something, couldn't you? That pre-match video package.
Right.
Lady Gaga's Perfect Celebrity. It really nailed the vibe for these two.
Oh, totally. And what really struck me was the contrast it painted.
Yeah.
You had Tiffany Stratton just shooting upwards, right? Money in the Bank winner, champ for, what, 106 days?
Yeah, over 100 days.
Mm-hmm.
Third title defense, WrestleMania debut as champion, and her first singles match ever against Charlotte. Huge.
Huge deal for her. And then on the other side, Charlotte Flair, returning from that massive knee injury, ACL, MCL, meniscus, a whole year out.
A whole year of rehab. She won the Rumble, sure, back in January 25. But it's interesting, some reports mentioned the crowd reaction was a bit divided.
Yeah, like maybe some feeling she was a bit entitled, or perhaps, you know, a bit of fatigue with seeing the same top names. It added this layer to her queen character.
Definitely. And the entrances.
Yeah.
Talk about spectacles.
Talk about conflict of interest.
Tiffany coming out of that giant Barbie doll box. Inspired by the movie, obviously.
Yeah, and speaking from experience, those boxes are not comfortable, but they do smell good.
I love that new Barbie smell.
And that was proto technology, right? With the AI holograms of her in other boxes. First time proto was used at a WWE event, apparently. Big Mattel partnership thing.
Really leaning into the buff Barbie persona.
Yeah.
Then you have Charlotte arriving in Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
Total contrast.
Pure queen. And that graphic they showed listing all her titles: 6-time WWA Women's Champ, 7-time Women's World Champ, NXT Tag Team, 2 Rumbles. I mean, wow.
The resume speaks for itself. So you
Yeah.
can imagine the pressure on Tiffany facing that legacy.
Immense. Absolutely immense. And you had Cole, McAfee, and Wade Barrett on commentary right there, calling it as it happened. Their reactions really shape how you first see the match.
Speaking of shaping things, that promo on SmackDown before Mania.
Oh, boy. Yeah, that generated some chatter.
Tiffany bringing up Charlotte's divorces. That kind of landed awkwardly, didn't it? Didn't seem to hit right with the crowd.
Yeah, a bit of a train wreck feel, according to some takes. And Charlotte's line about Liv Kaiser being in her DMs was, well, it was a line.
It felt like they were trying really hard to make it personal, maybe too hard. A bit outside the usual wrestling focus.
Definitely trying for that personal heat, yeah. Maybe the execution was just a bit off. Anyway, bell rings. Match time, reports say around 19, maybe 20 minutes.
It sounds about right. And they didn't waste any time. The commentary pointed out they went right into it.
Like a brawl, yeah. No feeling out process, no traditional collar and elbow tie-up.
Which, you know, for people less familiar, that's your classic wrestling start. Slow, technical. This wasn't that.
Nope. Charlotte got a double leg takedown early, some ground and pound, but Tiffany fired back fast. Forearms, chops, real physical start.
Yes, setting the tone. We saw Charlotte hit a knee to the midsection, but Tiffany answered right back, sending Charlotte hard into the ring post. Ouch.
Then Charlotte landed a kick to the face, launched Tiffany over the top rope, looked like she might take control.
But Tiffany popped right back up, landed a straight right. Charlotte answered with those signature knife-edge chops. Then Tiffany, she reversed an Irish whip.
and swatted Charlotte right out of midair. That was impressive.
Then trapped her in the tree of woe, set up that flying double foot stomp, got a 2 count.
Then things got a bit nasty. Hair pull from Tiffany.
Action spilled outside. Tiffany kicked Charlotte towards the barricade, but Charlotte turned it around. Belly to back suplex onto the barricade.
Brutal. Then threw Tiffany into the barricade. Head slam on the apron, driving her face into the canvas repeatedly.
Yeah, Charlotte put her knee right on Tiffany's neck at one point, then a kick to the back of the head, and then that move, the snapmare into the devil's kiss.
Right. And commentary specifically called it out as Stephanie Vicar's finishing move. It's certainly bold.
It is. It's a bold declaration, as you say, but with absolutely zero context.
Interesting detail.
Followed by those 3 rolling head scissors from Charlotte, showing off the technique.
But Tiffany kept fighting back. Charlotte went for a Boston Crab.
And Tiffany rolled through, got another 2 count, showed great resilience. Then more forearm shivers traded. Charlotte hit that neck breaker onto the knee, looked painful.
Tiffany then dodged the big boot, hit a nice drop kick, and then those 2 double back handstand elbows. Very athletic.
Into the spine buster, but only for 2. Charlotte kicked out.
So Charlotte rolled outside to regroup. Smart move. But it didn't last long. Head slam on the top rope. Charlotte climbs up.
Tiffany cuts her off. Running forearm smash,
Yeah.
rolling senton. Looked like she might hit the PME.
But Charlotte scouted it, avoided the prettiest moonsault ever, then did that cool skin the cat move back into the ring.
Ring awareness right there. Kick to the face from Charlotte. Tiffany responds with that roll-through basement drop kick. Another 2 count.
Man, the near falls were coming thick and fast. Charlotte sent Tiffany to the apron. Tiffany hit a shoulder to the gut. Then Charlotte landed a huge big boot.
Only 2, again. And you could hear the trash talk starting.
Right.
Mainly from Charlotte.
Yeah, trying to get in Tiffany's head. But Tiffany answered with chops and forearms.
Charlotte sidestepped her into the ropes, hit another big boot, looked for natural selection.
Tiffany blocked it, went for her cartwheel Alabama slam.
But Charlotte countered that into a sit-out powerbomb. Looked like it might be over.
Another near fall, unbelievable. Then a back elbow from Tiffany. Step up and Zugiri from Charlotte. Tiffany dodged a knee drop. Charlotte hit a clothesline.
Charlotte climbed the turnbuckles again. Tiffany attacked her from behind. Charlotte fought her off with back elbows, tried a belly-to-back suplex.
But Tiffany landed on her feet. Great counter. Dodged another big boot attempt and hit that pop-up spine buster.
So close. Another 2 count. Charlotte immediately responds with a backbreaker, drives Tiffany face first into the middle rope. She goes up top again.
Flying crossbody attempt. Tiffany rolled through. 2 count.
Shoved her off the top, and then just zeroed in on that left knee, the one Charlotte injured.
Yeah, driving it into the canvas again and again. Really targeted attack.
Charlotte hit a desperation boot out of nowhere, got a 2 count, then dragged Tiffany to the corner and started wrapping Tiffany's leg around the ring post. Payback.
Tiffany fought back with an elbow, but Charlotte hit a forearm, a knee drop, double leg takedown, applied the figure 8.
Looked like that might be it. But Tiffany, again, attacked Charlotte's bad knee to break the hold. Smart wrestling.
Kicked Charlotte to the corner, hit a chop block on that injured knee, followed with a rolling senton, going for the PME again.
But Charlotte got the knees up.
Yeah.
Countered it, but probably hurt her own knee even more doing it.
Yeah, definitely. Charlotte rolled Tiffany over, 2 count. Had her in the drop zone, as they called it. Both women met on the top rope.
Exchanging heavy blows up there. Charlotte knocked Tiffany off, sent her crashing chest first to the mat, then hit the supernatural selection.
That had to be it. 1, 2, no, Tiffany kicked out.
Incredible. More trash talk from Charlotte, even a slap across the face. Then Charlotte hit her own chop block, tried a body slam.
Tiffany landed on her feet, forearm smash, avoid the spear, Alabama slam into the turnbuckles, another rolling senton.
She's setting it up, going up top.
And this time she connects. The PME. Prettiest moonsault ever. 1, 2, 3.
Tiffany Stratton retains. What a match. But maybe not perfect.
Well, yeah. The commentators definitely hyped the physicality. Wade Barrett yelling, "Throw some potatoes." Tells you something.
Huh. Yeah. But there were reports, and even some commentary mentions, that things felt a bit botch-laden, or the rhythm was off.
It's a tricky one. Was it botch-laden or just, the result of that intense, maybe slightly chaotic pace? Some analysis did suggest the final third, maybe even half, felt a bit rough around the edges.
Yeah, the execution wasn't always crisp.
And the finish, while decisive, some felt it kind of came out of nowhere, lacked that final crescendo buildup you sometimes expect, so overall. Yeah, feeling it didn't quite hit that classic WrestleMania level for some critics.
So Tiffany Stratton wins, still WWE Women's Champion, pinfall victory, and it sounds like she wore the evidence of that battle.
Oh, absolutely. Reports after the match said she looked like she'd been through a war. Potential chipped tooth, busted lip, bloody bruise on her forehead. She even posted on Instagram telling fans her teeth were okay.
Had to reassure everyone. And apparently in the post-show interview, her smile looked fine, so maybe just a scare on the tooth front.
Good news there. But yeah, the commentary reactions were definitely mixed to negative overall, seems like. Praised the start, the intensity.
But criticized the execution, the flow, that finish we mentioned. Kind of a consensus of slight disappointment in the match quality itself, given the stage.
Which is interesting because despite those critiques, pretty much everyone agreed Tiffany winning was the right call.
Absolutely. Strategically, having her beat Charlotte Flair clean at WrestleMania, that does huge things for her credibility as champion. Biggest win of her career, easily, besides maybe the Money in the Bank cash in itself.
Beating Charlotte Flair at Mania is a massive statement. And there was that little moment after the match, right? A small show of respect from Charlotte to Tiffany.
Yeah, that spoke volumes. So, rematch. Backlash maybe, or perhaps not needed.
That's the question, isn't it? Given the sort of mixed reaction to the match itself and the clean finish, maybe they move on. Hard to say.
We also got to mention that funny moment, Tiffany almost ending up in Mark Shapiro's lap during that brawl outside.
Yeah, the commentary definitely had some fun with that near miss. Added a little levity. Okay, then there's Meltzer's take.
Right. He was pretty sarcastic about the finish, actually. Described the moves as like an Alabama slam, or at least something approximating that, and her PME moonsault. Didn't sound impressed with the execution.
Ouch. But did he acknowledge the effort?
He did note the physicality. Mentioned Stratton had bloody teeth, some forehead swelling, so it was definitely a tough physical match, even if he didn't rate the technique highly.
But Meltzer's overall review was...
Pretty negative, honestly. He gave it only 1 3/4 stars, called it polarizing and sloppy as hell. Thought it was worse than another match on the show.
Wow. Quite the contrast to the live commentary's excitement.
Big time. But interestingly, Meltzer did say the animosity felt real, and the crowd was invested because of the personal stuff that messed up interview angle.
The divorce comments again.
Yeah. He also mentioned they tried to incorporate some MMA stuff to make it seem more like a real fight, maybe cover for some sloppiness, and he noted the crowd was booing Flair heavily. Really loudly, apparently.
Huh. So even if the technical match wasn't perfect in his eyes, the story worked on some level.
Seems like that's his takeaway. People cared because of the story, despite the execution flaws he saw. Now, just quickly shifting back to the entrances, the tech for Tiffany's entrance was seriously cool.
Right. The proto-AI hologram thing, having her appear in multiple Barbie boxes at once, very slick visual.
And that was Proto's first time working with WWE, right, on their biggest stage.
Yeah. David Nussbaum, Proto's founder, was apparently thrilled, call it a dream come true, praised WWE's creative and Tiffany for pulling it off.
What are the big takeaways?
Well, first, the result itself. Tiffany Stratton winning was huge, maybe even a bit of a surprise for some expecting Charlotte's 15th title reign. That's a massive career moment for Tiffany.
Second, the sheer physicality. You heard it from the commentary. You saw it on Tiffany afterwards.
Yeah.
This was a tough, demanding match. They left it all out there.
Third, that mixed critical reception. The win was seen as important, the right booking decision, but the match execution itself got questioned by quite a few observers. Didn't quite reach classic status, maybe.
And finally, that entrance technology. The proto-holograms were definitely a standout visual, showing WWE's push for innovation on their biggest shows.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I guess you could call it a real out-of-the-box idea. WrestleMania 41 Night 1 and the 2025 Hall of Fame ceremony.
Okay, so the inductees announced were Michelle McCool, The Natural Disasters, so that's Quake and Typhoon, John Tenta,
Right.
Lex Luger. Then, interestingly, a specific match. Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin from WrestleMania 13.
Ah, that classic.
Yeah. And finally, Paul Levesque, or Triple H.
Got it.
But one thing that popped out straight away during the introductions, when they brought out all the honorees, Lex Luger wasn't there on stage.
Oh, any reason given?
Nope. Nothing in the materials we reviewed mentioned why. So, bit of a question mark there initially.
Interesting. But Triple H, Paul Levesque, he made his entrance.
Oh, yeah. Big entrance, his theme music played, the whole deal. And he went down the line, shook hands with the other inductees.
And that handshake with Bret Hart. It sounds like that was a moment.
It really does. One source described Bret's face as like a priceless look of contempt.
Yeah.
There's pure disdain almost.
Wow. So, clearly some lingering feelings there after all this time.
Seems like it. It really makes you think, doesn't it? Even on a night meant for celebration.
Yeah. The history is always present. And then Levesque did his signature water spit pose.
Yep, classic Triple H right there on stage.
And the ceremony itself. Michelle McCool.
Hers was pretty brief, but seemed quite impactful. She said, "This may be my story tonight, but it's your story too. You are enough. Period. Thank y'all."
Nice sentiment. Connecting with the audience.
Definitely. And the Natural Disasters induction, that was dedicated to Quake, to John Tenta. You could feel the emotion there, honoring his memory.
It's good to hear. And Luger.
Just saying, I'm standing for this.
He goes straight to talking about his mother.
Right.
And how she kept asking him, do you think they were going to put you in that Hall of Fame? I don't know, Mom, maybe someday. It just sounds so real, so down to earth.
It really does. Very genuine. No bravado there.
And then, now, the Bret Hart versus Stone Cold match induction. That's huge.
Yeah, and Austin talked about it. He said, if it wasn't for Bret Hart, Stone Cold Steve Austin wouldn't be sitting here. Cheers, Bret. I love you, buddy. I love you.
Wow. That's quite the statement. Shows a lot of respect, despite their history in that match.
Totally. It highlights how intertwined their careers became because of that moment.
Okay, and then the final induction, Paul Levesque.
Right, the headliner.
And his speech. What were the key takeaways?
Well, a big theme was that it wasn't really about him. He stressed it was about everyone who helped him along the way.
Mm-hmm. Giving credit.
Yeah, talked about his parents' work ethic, how that shaped him. And he seemed really proud of building the developmental system, NXT, and the Performance Center. Said he gets inspired by the younger talent.
That makes sense,
Yeah.
given his current role.
And he sort of pledged to keep the business strong for the future, protect its legacy,
Right. Anything personal.
Yeah, he talked about what's really important, his wife Stephanie, his daughters Aurora, Murphy, and Vaughn. Had this line, one word forever, and he finished simply with, thank you, just 2 words.
But the speech itself wasn't exactly 2 words long, was it?
Ha, no, not at all. One description called it Broadway Plus. Apparently it went for over an hour.
An hour? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and this apparently had a side effect. The sources mentioned that the event ran super late because of it.
Oh, dear.
And get this, wrestlers in the audience were reportedly falling asleep. Booker T.
Or should we call him Booker Zzzz?
That Z. It's obviously meant to sound like snoring, like sleep.
Suggest boredom. 5 times. 5 times. 5 times I fell asleep in your Hall of Fame speech, sucka.
Eric Bischoff, Jey Uso, Naomi, Logan Paul, Montez, LA Knight, Solo Sikoa, Cody Rhodes, like a whole bunch of them.
Oh my God, that's kind of hilarious, but also, maybe a sign it went a bit too long.
You could say that. So yeah, very lengthy speech to close the show.
Okay, let's circle back to that Bret Hart and Paul Levesque dynamic. That look you mentioned. It sounds like the animosity is still pretty real.
It seems that way, doesn't it? And you have to remember, Bret has publicly rated Levesque as like a 3 out of 10 wrestler in the past.
Ouch. Yeah, that's not subtle.
No. And a lot of the historical tension, people trace it back to Levesque's association with Shawn Michaels back in the day.
Right, the clique. That was a period with a lot of backstage politics.
For sure. But, there's another perspective mentioned in the sources, suggesting maybe Levesque wasn't the main driver, perhaps more of a scapegoat sometimes, or even that he was like the more grounded one in that group.
Interesting angle. It's always more complicated than it looks from the outside, I guess.
Always. And then there's the huge shadow of the Montreal Screwjob.
Can't talk about Bret in that era without mentioning Montreal.
Exactly. And Levesque himself apparently claimed later on that the whole finish, the Screwjob, was his suggestion. Like, F that. If he won't do it for him.
Whoa.
And from Bret's side, he saw Levesque and Michaels as ruthless, targeting people associated with him, even guys like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson back then.
Really? The Rock, too?
Yeah, there was this anecdote about Levesque wanting Bret to beat The Rock for the Intercontinental title, but Bret apparently refused.
Huh. Just shows the layers of, one source called it gang warfare between the Hart Foundation and other groups.
Yeah, it sounds like it was intense behind the scenes.
Okay, shifting gears slightly. Levesque's speech also included a dedication to Vince McMahon.
It did. He spent some time talking about Vince, And their relationship is, well, incredibly complex, isn't it? Mentor, boss, father-in-law,
Yeah.
grandfather to his kids.
Yeah, all of the above.
And Levesque expressed, love for McMahon, acknowledging his impact on his life.
How did the crowd react to Vince's name being mentioned? That's a sensitive topic these days.
Well, according to the sources, the reaction was actually overwhelmingly positive. Applause, cheers. No audible negativity reported.
Really? That is interesting, especially considering how Vince has been sort of airbrushed from the company narrative since, January last year?
Exactly. It's a striking contrast. It makes you wonder about his enduring connection with that audience, despite everything.
Definitely food for thought. Any other little moments from the ceremony worth noting?
Yeah, a couple of quick ones. Stone Cold Steve Austin apparently flipped the bird on stage at some point.
Of course he did.
And the camera supposedly panned down real quick. And apparently Levesque's water spit actually hit a camera lens.
Huh. Bet the camera operator loved that.
Probably not.
Okay, let's look ahead quickly to WrestleMania 41 itself. Any tidbits from the sources?
Yeah, there was mention of a Goodyear blimp footage showing the women's world champion, Io Sky.
The blimp shots. Classic.
And that led into previewing her match for WrestleMania Sunday, a triple threat against Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley. That sounds like a potential show stealer.
Definitely. Big match.
And also heavily pushed for Sunday night. John Cena's supposed final WrestleMania match, main eventing for the undisputed WWE Championship.
The end of an era, potentially. That's huge billing.
For sure. Oh, and a quick sponsor mention popped up, Xfinity, the Wi-Fi partner. Something about improved Wi-Fi at the venue and the set having a kind of Vegas Flash meets Xfinity Power vibe.
Right. Sponsor integration is part of the modern spectacle.
Yep.
So it feels like the 2025 Hall of Fame was more than just handing out awards. It was history, celebration, and clearly some unresolved tension bubbling just below the surface.
Absolutely. You hopefully have a richer sense now of not just who was inducted, but the stories around them, the relationships, the little moments, even the surprisingly long speeches.
Yeah, and the sleeping wrestlers. Can't forget that.
Okay, let's dive in. We're tackling a match that, well, people are definitely still talking about it. The triple threat main event, WrestleMania 41, Night 1, Seth Rollins, CM Punk, Roman Reigns. Wow.
Yes.
It was something else. Not just a match, like you said, more like a whole story unfolding with some major twists.
Totally.
Even before the bell rang, right? The whole Paul Heyman situation, that was the big question mark hanging over everything. Heyman managing Punk, but with that history with Reigns, I mean, that alone created so much intrigue right from the get-go.
It really did. And the entrances, they leaned into that big time. They weren't just walkouts. They were setting the stage,
Yeah, take Rollins. That was pure Rollins spectacle, wasn't it?
Uh-huh. The flamethrowers, the whole blackout thing.
And then the reveal, the white gear under the black robe.
Yeah.
Very dramatic. And one report mentioned the graphic they showed, his whole WrestleMania history, 12 times.
Yeah, and pointing out his debut with Reigns back in the Shield days. It's like right there visually connecting their past. Powerful stuff.
It really is. And then you contrast that with Roman.
Totally different vibe. Just walking out alone, carrying the Ulafala himself.
Yeah. Which, as the commentators pointed out, Heyman usually does that, right?
Exactly. So right away you're thinking, okay, what does this mean? Is he distancing himself because Heyman's with Punk? And then the screen's dropping down, showing the NOI family, legacy, pressure, all that.
And then
Punk's entrance was like a journey in itself. That pre-recorded video package was brilliant.
that old debut promo footage, cutting to now. Genius. And using this Fireburns, man, that took you back.
It really did. But then the switch, right into Living Color playing Cult of Personality live.
Just like WrestleMania 29. And who was with him then?
Haven. It's such a deliberate callback. Like history repeating, but also not quite. And the graphic, summary mentioned this, noting it was his first WrestleMania main event since coming back, his last appearance being way back in 2013. Huge moment for him.
Massive. And, oh, that little detail. Reigns putting the Ulafala down in the corner himself.
Yeah, subtle. But it adds to that whole picture of him being alone in this, maybe needing to stand on his own against both Rollins and Punk, and maybe even Heyman.
Okay, so entrance is done. Incredible stage set. Let's get into the ring. What about the early action?
Well, right away, Punk seemed like he wanted to play mind games. One report said he rolled out almost immediately, went over to Heyman, just to get under Reigns' skin,
And Reigns looked visibly annoyed by it, yeah.
You bet. And Rollins, being Rollins, saw an opening, tried to kind of suggests teaming up with Reigns against Punk. Smart, given their history.
Leverage that animosity, yeah. But Roman wasn't having it, was he?
Not for a second. The play-by-play was clear. Immediate uppercut to Rollins. Alliance over before it began. Shows you that even with Heyman over there, the Rollins-Reigns conflict runs deep.
Definitely. So it just dissolved into chaos pretty quickly then.
Oh, yeah. Total brawl. All the sources talk about the weapons coming out early. Chairs, garbage cans.
The garbage can. It got a workout, didn't it?
It really did. Punk suplexing Rollins onto it, using it on Rollins' face. Pretty brutal, opportunistic stuff. Typical triple threat mayhem. And even Reigns took flight. A running dive over the barricade into the crowd area. The energy was just insane from the start.
Wow. And signature moves started flying too, I assume?
Oh, yeah. Rollins with his dives, Reigns hitting those big power bombs, him putting both guys through announce tables at different points. Huge power display.
Making a statement.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And Punk trying for the Anaconda Vice, hitting the GTS. The classic stuff was all there.
Lots of kickouts, right? I saw that mentioned.
So many near falls. Like almost constantly, multiple sources talked about it. The resilience was off the charts. One commentary bit even questioned if it was maybe too many kickouts.
Yeah, overkill.
Kinda, but they kind of walked it back, saying it did ramp up the drama.
Yeah.
Made you feel like anyone could actually win at any moment. Really sold the hatred between them, how much it meant.
Makes sense. And there was that moment, I think a written summary highlighted it, where Rollins had Reigns down.
Oh yeah, that was pure cinema. Rollins leaning in, yelling at Reigns.
Bringing up Heyman, bringing up Moxley, Dean Ambrose. Trying to twist the knife.
Exactly. Trying to exploit that broken trust from the Shield days. Maybe trying one last time to forge some kind of temporary alliance, planting those seeds of doubt about Heyman.
Playing on all that history, but it didn't really work, did it?
Yeah, didn't lead to anything solid. Which, brings us right back to the central figure, Paul Heyman. Just him being there with Punk. You could see it eating at Reigns.
The commentary picked up on that. Reigns looking disgusted.
Absolutely. They used that exact word, disgusted. And then, everyone's just waiting for Heyman to make his move with that chair. You just knew something was coming.
The suspense was killing you.
Totally. And then the payoff. Wow, that whole sequence was just chef's kiss betrayal.
Yeah.
Heyman slides the chair to Punk.
And you think, okay, here we go. Punk gets the advantage.
Bam. Low blow to Punk. Heyman turns on him immediately. The shock on commentary was real, like genuine disbelief.
And then Reigns must have thought, okay, Heyman's back with me, grabs the chair, goes after Punk, then turns his attention to Rollins. Is about to hit him with the chair.
Only for Heyman to hit him with a low blow. Double cross.
Insane. The commentary must have lost it.
Oh, they did. Pure chaos. Calls it audacious, unbelievable, a betrayal, layered on betrayal.
And then the final twist.
Heyman hands the chair to Rollins.
Yeah.
Of all people. Seals the deal on this completely unexpected alliance.
Rollins doesn't hesitate. Chair shot to Reigns, curb stomp, 1, 2, 3, done.
And the visual afterward. Heyman raising Rollins' hand. Just standing there together. That picture says it all. Massive shift.
Absolutely unbelievable. So after the dust settled, what was the general feeling, the post-match analysis?
Well, the consensus looking across the reports and commentary seemed to be that this main event it saved night one for a lot of people.
Saved it. So night one was maybe a bit, meh. Before that?
That seemed to be the feeling, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit mid was a term used. But this match, while maybe a bit overbooked or chaotic for some tastes,
Yeah, you could see that argument.
it undeniably delivered the drama, delivered the story progression, the big shocking moment. It got people talking, engaged.
And Rollins pinning Reigns, that's huge in itself.
Massive. Reigns has been, practically unbeatable for so long. Taking a pin like that, it's a major statement. Raises a ton of questions.
For sure.
And Meltzer's review really highlights the crowd reaction here.
What did he say about that?
That even though Rollins and Heyman basically turned heel, became the bad guys, the crowd kind of cheered Heyman's move.
That is wild.
Yeah, they saw that switch, that new alliance with Rollins, as the biggest, most interesting thing that happened. Wild, right? Why do you think they reacted like that?
Maybe just the sheer audacity of it. Betraying Punk and Reigns, it just blew up the whole situation. Total anarchy.
Yeah, it completely changed the dynamic. And Meltzer, he gave it 4 3/4 stars. Super high rating.
Wow. He praised the hot crowd, right? And using the big moves effectively.
Yeah, said the atmosphere was electric. Acknowledged interference is kind of expected in big main events, but still high praise.
But the focus was really on that Heyman turn.
Overwhelmingly, according to Meltzer. That was the story coming out of it.
What's next?
Well, obviously Rollins and Heyman together. That opens up so many doors. A feud with Reigns, now fueled by this ultimate betrayer by Heyman, seems almost certain, right?
You'd think so. Revenge has to be on Reigns' mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Rollins still has unfinished business with Punk. That hasn't gone away.
Right.
Plus, some are already speculating. Could Rollins, with Heyman's backing, go after Jey Uso and the World Heavyweight Championship?
Ooh, interesting angle. This one match really did just shake everything up, didn't it?
Completely reshuffle the deck, yeah.
Okay, so wrapping this up, this deep dive really showed a match that was, yes, full of action, but the core was that Heyman drama. The allegiance questions, the betrayals, that was the real story.
Couldn't agree more. The physicality was intense, but it was the psychological game. The shocking Kane turns Heyman turning on Punk, then turning on Reigns, and ending up with Rollins that made it unforgettable.
That final image of Rollins and Heyman.
Yeah, nobody saw that coming.
Nope. That's the defining moment.
So here's the final thought to leave you with. What does this Rollins-Heyman alliance actually mean long-term? How does this change things for Rollins, for Reigns, for Punk going forward?
And maybe more intriguingly, what kind of deal did Rollins make? What leverage does he have over Heyman now, or vice versa, given Heyman's track record?
Right. That's the really juicy question, isn't it? Lots to think about. Maybe go back, watch the match again with all this in mind.
Definitely worth doing. And keep exploring, see what other analyses are out there, continue the dive.
Great stuff. Okay, let's switch gears to night 2.
Okay, let's unpack this. You know, it's funny, that Las Vegas Strip, it feels like the absolute heart of Vegas, but surprisingly, it's actually outside the city limits.
In Paradise, Nevada.
Exactly, Paradise, Nevada. Kind of sets the scene, doesn't it, for the massive spectacle we're looking at today, the opening of WrestleMania 41, Night 2.
It's an interesting little fact, that geographical quirk. Like, Paradise being just next door to the main event. It sort of mirrors WrestleMania itself, you know?
Right.
This whole constructed world of, like, peak drama and amazing feats.
Yeah, just outside the everyday.
Exactly. Existing just beyond normal sports and entertainment.
Totally. And it's worth remembering just how many people are involved. I mean, the performers, sure, but also the commentators, all the behind-the-scenes folks. It's a massive undertaking.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Even just the opening sequence of something like WrestleMania.
Yeah.
It's incredibly deliberate. It's not just random.
It's a blend, isn't it? Performance, story, logistics.
And how it starts is so crucial. It sets the tone, manages expectations for everything else.
So how did Night 2 actually begin? Well, interestingly, they started by repeating something.
Repeating.
Yeah, that City of Dreamers video package, the one narrated by Dana White from UFC. They played it again.
Didn't that close out the Night 1 pre-show?
It did, yeah, exactly. Which is, like you said, kind of an interesting choice.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Using it twice like that. Maybe trying to link the nights. Or bridge the UFC and WWE audiences, perhaps. What's the strategy there?
Good question. Definitely makes you think. So after that video, we move straight into a big WrestleMania tradition.
The anthem.
Yep. Ring announcer Alicia Taylor introduced Ava Max.
And she sang the Star-Spangled Banner.
She did. And get this. Apparently she's got something like 50 billion global streams. Huge artist.
Wow, okay. Yeah, the anthem at these massive events. It's more than just patriotism, right? It's kind of a unifying moment.
Yeah, like a collective deep breath.
Exactly. It creates the shared feeling, this communal space before all the competition and drama starts. Really gets the audience invested together before they root for individuals.
Definitely sets a certain tone. So after Ava Max, we got these big, sweeping aerial shots of Allegiant Stadium. Looked incredible.
Always impressive, those stadium views.
Then Michael Cole started previewing the night's matches. And while he's talking, we see these quick cuts of superstars arriving.
The arrival footage.
Yeah.
Classic build-up.
Yeah, you know, Cody Rhodes, some of the Judgment Day guys, Penta, Bron Breakker, even Randy Orton with his wife.
Gives you that little glimpse behind the curtain before they're on. Reminds you they're actual people under the personas.
And we also saw some backstage stuff. Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, Bianca Belair getting ready for their match.
Which was the opener, right? The triple threat.
That's the one. First match of the night. Then, to really crank up the energy, they hit us with a highlight package from night 1.
Makes sense. Quick recap keeps the buzz going from the night before.
Totally. Reminds everyone of the big moments. And that transitioned right into showing footage of the stars set for night 2.
Smart move. Refreshes the memory, but also builds the hype for what's coming tonight. Show you the key players.
Then a big moment inside the stadium. Stephanie McMahon came out.
Ah, yes. To welcome the crowd.
Right. And she shared this really interesting personal story. She mentioned the last Vegas WrestleMania, which was WrestleMania 9.
Way back.
Yeah. She said she was 16 then. And now, fast forward to WrestleMania 41 back in Vegas.
Yeah.
Her middle daughter is 16.
Wow, that's quite something. A full circle moment.
Talk about a parallel.
Definitely a way to connect with the longtime fans. That nostalgia hit humanizes the whole thing.
And she talked about the WWE family, welcoming everyone home.
Framing it as more than just wrestling matches, creating that sense of belonging for the audience, too.
Right. Adds a different feel. And then the place just exploded. Pyro goes off.
Of course. Can't have WrestleMania without pyro.
Big crowd shots, everyone going wild. And Michael Cole officially welcomes everyone to WrestleMania Sunday. Travis Scott's Fiend is playing in the background.
That whole combination, the pyro, the music, the crowd roar, it's like a sensory overload designed purely for excitement. Hits you right away.
And the commentary team, same as night one. Michael Cole, Pat McAfee, Wade Barrett.
Consistency there.
Yeah.
Good for the viewers.
Cole even mentioned it was his 28th WrestleMania. 28th, that's a record.
An incredible tenure.
They also give a shout out to the Spanish commentary team, Marcelo Rodriguez and Jerry Soto.
Important to acknowledge that global audience. WWE's reach is huge.
And yeah, totally sold out again. Second night in a row. Over 60,000 fans.
Just massive numbers. Shows you how big this event still is.
So finally, before the first match, they ran down some of the big bouts for the night. Just a quick preview.
Setting the stage for the action.
Obviously, the main event, Cody Rhodes defending the undisputed WWE Championship against John Cena. That got a big mention.
Naturally. The biggest match.
They flagged it as a big night for the Judgment Day, too.
Right, with that Intercontinental title, fatal four-way. Bron Breakker defending against Finn Balor, Penta, and Dominik Mysterio.
Yep. And the women's tag title match, Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez defending against Lyra Valkyria and a mystery partner.
Oh, yeah, because Bayley was injured, right?
Exactly, filling in for Bayley. And Randy Orton's match also got mentioned against another mystery opponent because Kevin Owens was out injured.
Lots of mystery opponents, as intrigue.
And they highlighted it was Orton's 20th anniversary wrestling at WrestleMania.
20 years. Incredible longevity.
And then they specifically pointed to the opening match again, that Women's World Championship triple threat. Io Sky, the champ, versus Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley.
And they emphasize the tricky spot for Io, right? No champion's advantage in a triple threat.
Exactly. And they mentioned Bianca Belair's strong WrestleMania record, too, really setting the stakes for that first contest.
We're tackling that huge triple threat match for the Women's World Championship, the one that kicked off night 2 of WrestleMania.
That's right. An absolutely massive encounter.
So our mission here is really to unpack what made this match Io Sky, defending against Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley, such a big deal, why everyone was talking about it.
It gives us a chance to look at it from, well, pretty much every angle.
Okay, but first, just quickly, pronunciation. The champion, her name is Io Sky, just so we're all clear on that one.
Good point, Io Sky. Got it.
Right. So context. This was Io Sky's 3rd WrestleMania. She came in as champ, holding the belt for, 48 days? And she had a perfect 3-0 record in triple threats before this.
Impressive start. And Belair.
Bianca Belair, this was her 5th Mania, also undefeated, 4-0. That was actually the longest active streak going into the weekend.
Wow. Okay. High stakes for her, too, then.
Definitely. And then Rhea Ripley, her 6th WrestleMania. She was undefeated in world title matches at Mania, 3 there, though her triple threat record was a bit more mixed, like 2-2.
Mm-hmm. And the commentators, you mentioned, they pointed out that disadvantage for the champ straight away.
Yeah, they really hammered that home. In a triple threat, the champion, Io Sky in this case, doesn't need to be pinned or submitted herself to lose the title.
Absolutely. It fundamentally changes the dynamic. You're defending against 2 people, the odds stack up, and it just adds layers of unpredictability. Anyone can pin anyone.
Exactly. So if you were watching and wondering about all those complex dynamics, the clash of styles between these 3 incredible athletes, and just that electric WrestleMania atmosphere, well, let's dive right in.
Let's do it. Starting with the entrances. Because the crowd reactions were notable.
Yeah, definitely notable. Bianca Belair, first she had another big elaborate entrance, jump rope performance, young fans with grades. Her stepdaughter Morgan was there too. Looked great.
It did. But the sound from the crowd, quite a few boos, right? Throughout the night, actually, not just the entrance.
It really stood out, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when you compare it to Io Sky, who came out to, well, mostly cheers. A pretty positive reaction for her.
Mm-hmm. And then Rhea Ripley, her entrance was something else. That skeleton hand mask.
Yeah, it was cool.
Really striking. It just fed into that whole persona. And the sources we looked at all described her as being just super over with the fans there. Huge reaction for her.
So what's the thinking on why Belair got the nose? Because she's not playing a villain.
Well, the analysis points to a couple of things. One idea is that maybe the Las Vegas crowd that night just had a bit of a pro-heel tendency, you know? They like the bad guys, or at least the anti-heroes. And you combine that with the fact that Ripley and Io Sky are both incredibly popular right now. It's sort of created this weird situation where Belair, the clear babyface, ended up catching the negative reaction.
Right. It shows how crowd dynamics can be complex, doesn't always follow the script.
Exactly. It's not always just good versus evil. Okay, so the match itself.
Yeah, let's get into the action. It kicked off super fast. Io Sky went right after both of them. Yeah, blistering pace right from the bell. All three went right at it. But interestingly, like commentary flagged, there was this brief moment where Rhea and Bianca just zoned in on each other.
Their personal issues boiling over.
Exactly. And that let Io Sky just step back, observe, conserve a little energy. Really smart tactical play early on.
But she didn't stay back long. We heard those drop kicks connect. And Belair, I mean, her athleticism was on display almost immediately. She hit that sequence of 3 suplexes, including that delayed vertical one.
Wow. That delayed vertical even got some applause, didn't it, from the same people who might have been booing her entrance?
It did, which just speaks to how undeniably good she is in the ring. You have to respect the skill.
Absolutely. And Ripley, she definitely brought the power game. That razor's edge on Io Sky, slamming her onto Belair.
Classic triple threat strategy, right? Using one opponent as a weapon against the other creates that chaos, those big moments.
For sure. And even after that, Io kicked out of Rhea's pin attempt after the razor's edge.
Incredible resilience.
Seriously.
It just kept building.
But Io Sky wasn't just taking it. Her agility was key. That Hurricane Rana counter to a powerbomb attempt, 2 drop kicks finding their mark, the Asai moonsault to the outside was beautiful.
Always is.
And she hit that roll through double foot stomp too. She was flying around.
She really was. And the pace, it just felt relentless. Lots of standing switches, waist lock attempts, reversals. Just constant jockeying for position.
You felt like nobody could really get control for long. There was that spot where Belair actually caught Io Sky out of midair.
Oh, yeah.
And just swung her right into the barricade. That looked nasty.
Showed off Belair's strength there. Definitely a statement. And we saw submissions, too. Ripley locked in the prism trap.
Looked like it might be over.
But Belair was there to break it up. Again, that triple threat dynamic saving someone.
Shows how back and forth it was. Then Io hits that bullet train attack. Total contrast, all speed and agility.
And then things got really precarious, all 3 on the top rope. Commentary sounded worried.
Oh, yeah. Anytime you get multiple people up there, it's high risk, high reward.
Yeah.
Someone's likely going down hard.
And they described the aftermath as a car crash. Sounds like Bianca was right in the thick of that tumble.
Yeah. Brutal impact from that height.
And through all this madness, commentary kept noting the crowd was really getting behind Io Sky. Why do you think that was?
Well, maybe the underdog factor. Facing 2 physically bigger stars, maybe fans saw her as fighting uphill. Plus, her style is exciting, and maybe people remembered her past successes even without the Mania win that could build support.
Felt like the climax was building, near fall after near fall.
And the counters. So many signature move counters. Belair's handspring moonsault got blocked.
Yep.
Her KOD, she tried it multiple times, kept getting countered. Even Ripley's Riptide got countered by Io Sky into a DDT.
It just kept you guessing. You never knew when someone might hit their big move and end it.
Which led to some incredible near falls. Belair hit a spear and that amazing 450 splash.
Both broken up by Ripley.
Right. So Ripley goes for the avalanche Riptide off the top.
Huge move attempt.
But Io Sky counters it. The crowd was going nuts for those near falls. It really built the tension perfectly.
Absolutely.
The intensity was off the charts. That brawl between Bianca and Rhea, just pure animosity spilling over, and Io trying a poison rana off the second rope. The risks were just escalating.
Just phenomenal athleticism and, yeah, risk-taking. The poison rana's complex anyway, doing it there. Shows Io's skill and audacity. And then that final sequence. Total chaos. Bianca hits the KOD on Rhea.
Looked like she had it won for a split second, yeah.
Yeah, you think Belair's got it won right there.
But just as she's making the pin, Io Sky comes flying back into the picture. Hits the over the moonsault, that incredible moonsault of hers, right onto Belair.
Who was covering Ripley.
Exactly. And Sky pins Belair to retain the title.
What a finish. So smart.
Just perfectly executed. It protected Ripley because she wasn't pinned.
Right. She didn't take the fall.
And it gave Io Sky this huge, decisive, maybe slightly opportunistic win. Made her look like a really clever champion.
Absolutely. It was a fantastic piece of booking.
So, looking at the analysis afterwards, what was the general consensus?
Overwhelmingly positive. I mean, across the board, commentary, written reports, fan analysis, people were calling it one of the best matches of the whole WrestleMania weekend.
You saw that a lot. Praise for the athleticism, obviously.
Incredible athleticism, but also the pace, just how nonstop it was, and how well they executed some really complex sequences together.
People mentioned the chemistry, particularly between Belair and Io Sky. Some sources use the phrase legendary chemistry.
Yeah, they work so well together. And interestingly, there was also mention that the work between Io Sky and Rhea Ripley seemed much improved compared to past matches they'd had. Smoother, more dynamic.
That's good to hear. Shows growth.
Definitely. And that finish, we talked about it, but analysts really highlighted it as a masterstroke. Sky swooping in. It protected Ripley, but gave Sky a huge moment. All right, let's fold in the expert take. Dave Meltzer gave this 5 stars. Full 5 stars.
Which is, incredibly rare praise. Doesn't hand those out easily.
What did he like so much about it in his review?
He talked about the pace, super fast. The heat, genuine animosity, the creativity of the spots, like that human missile thing probably, and just overall technical excellence from all three. He called it a definite standout.
Wow.
And maybe the biggest compliment. He said, for 2025 so far, Io Sky has been the best bell-to-bell wrestler in WWE.
Whoa. Okay. Best bell-to-bell. That puts her performance and her reign in serious perspective.
Huge statement about her consistent quality in the ring.
And good to hear that despite all that craziness, Bianca's broken finger was apparently the only notable injury.
Yeah, speaks volumes about their skill and professionalism, keeping it intense but relatively safe.
Okay, let's boil it all down.
Io Sky retains. Where does this leave everyone?
Well, that's the interesting part, isn't it? Having Sky keep the belt opens up a lot of doors. For Belair, people pointed towards her interactions with Naomi and Jade Cargill. Maybe a new alliance or rivalry there.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And for Ripley, well, she's got a built-in reason to want a rematch, right? She wasn't pinned. She'll feel she deserves another shot at Io Sky in the title.
True. So the booking keeps multiple storylines alive and interesting moving forward.
Exactly. That's what a good finish to a big match like this should do. It resolves the immediate contest, but plants seeds for the future. Keeps you watching.
And it sounds like, despite some celebs being there, Flavor Flav, some MMA guys, Bridge the Kid, the focus really stayed on the wrestlers.
Yeah, the commentary team gave them a quick shout out, but honestly, the action in the ring was so compelling, that's where all the attention rightly was.
Okay, so let's kind of bring it all together then. This deep dive really highlights just how phenomenal all three women, Io Sky, Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, are. The athleticism, the determination, it was all there.
Absolutely, and those unexpected crowd reactions added a strange layer, didn't they? But the match itself, just non-stop, high-impact action.
And that finish. So clever, so sudden. It really cemented this as a standout moment from WrestleMania weekend.
It really did. It wasn't just spots either. It felt like good in-ring storytelling. You had the dynamics between the three, the crowd feeding into it, and it all built to that really significant win for Io Sky.
You are in for quite an intense one today. We're diving deep into that absolute war that was the Sin City Street Fight. Damian Priest, Drew McIntyre, WrestleMania 41, Night 2.
Right, that match. Let's start with the fuel, that year-long buildup. The commentary really painted a picture of McIntyre's torment.
Yeah, and what's compelling is that consistent pattern, isn't it?
Yeah.
Priest just constantly thwarting McIntyre.
Constantly.
The audio lays it out pretty clearly. WrestleMania 40, that Money in the Bank cash in, like immediately after Drew finally won the title.
Oh, yeah, brutal timing.
Clash at the Castle in Scotland, his home turf.
Right.
Royal Rumble elimination, Elimination Chamber elimination. Every single time it's Damian Priest.
It's almost like a running gag, but like a really painful one for McIntyre.
Right.
You can almost hear the shift in his focus, can't you? It's not just about the championship anymore.
No.
The audio's got that quote, him saying he'll make Priest's life a living hell. That's not title talk. That's pure vengeance.
Let's get into it. To start, the entrances. McIntyre comes out. He's got the Doom, the Dark Ages gear.
Yeah, standing by that big stone samurai thing.
Head bowed, and then nothing. No pyro. Kind of an awkward start, felt like.
A little bit, yeah.
That's good.
Especially compared to Priest. Total contrast.
How so?
He gets Kerry King from Slayer, shredding a guitar solo live on the stage.
Wow.
Then his theme, Rise for the Night, kicks in. And interestingly, one of the written reports actually flags this as likely paid promotion.
Ah, okay. The crossover stuff.
Exactly, blurring the lines between wrestling and, wider entertainment.
Makes sense. And the commentary guys picked up on Priest nodding to Kerry King.
Right.
But King was just zoned in.
Totally focused on playing, yeah.
Yeah.
Barely glanced at Priest. Dedication.
Huh, yeah. But that difference, McIntyre's kind of quiet start, Priest's rock concert entrance, it does set a specific mood, doesn't it?
Definitely.
And then, forget a clean start, bell rings. Or rather, before the bell rings.
Yeah. Chaos. McIntyre just went straight for Priest. No waiting.
Shows the animosity, maybe. Or just pure desperation after that year-long thing.
Could be both. It was immediate intensity. Knife-edge chops, these huge haymakers from Drew.
And Drew gets clotheslined out fast.
Right out of the ring. Just an explosion from the start. And they didn't stay tidy for long.
No kidding. Weapons came out quick.
Well, almost straight away.
Rules are out the window.
And boy, did they take advantage. The audio is like a shopping list of destruction. Priest hit a leaping back elbow, some forearm smashes, a super kick.
Trying to fight back.
Yeah, but McIntyre fired back.
Then they ended up on the rampway.
Yep. And McIntyre hits a vertical suplex. Right there on the ramp. That's gotta hurt.
Unforgiving surface.
Yeah.
And the ring steps got involved too, I heard.
Oh, yeah. Became weapons pretty fast. Priest actually flung the stairs right at McIntyre's face.
Whoa.
And McIntyre gave it back, slamming Priest's head onto the steps. And the announce table, too. Vegas street fight living up to its name.
They were using everything. It just descended so fast, didn't it?
Tells you how personal it was, I think. Willingness to just inflict damage.
Then we get that moment. The selfie moment.
McIntyre grabs a phone, his brother's apparently, at ringside.
And just starts taking selfies with Priest laid out.
Yep. And then tweets it. Still bored at work. Lol. Which is, a callback.
To last year, yeah. It's like this weird mind game mixed with the violence.
Exactly.
That mix of brutality and, dark social media comedy. It's very McIntyre right now.
Totally. Gets under Priest's skin any way he can. But it wasn't just phone games. More weapons.
Oh, yeah. Steel chair comes into play. McIntyre driving it into Priest's ear, apparently.
Nasty. And then you see tables being set up outside. 2 of them.
Uh-oh. Signaling intent there.
Definitely. While he's doing the selfie thing, he's also plotting the next level of destruction. Priest tried a few comebacks, though, right? Forearms.
Brief ones, yeah. But McIntyre shut them down fast. Headbutt, clothesline over the top again.
And then McIntyre flies. Somersault plancha over the ropes, taking it back outside. Athleticism there.
Things really ramped up after that, didn't they? Near falls, counters. McIntyre sets up for the Claymore.
Does big finish.
And Priest desperately throws a chair at him to stop it.
Yeah, like a last-ditch effort. But here's the thing. McIntyre still hit the Claymore.
Even with the chair.
Wow. But Priest kicked out. Only a 2 count. Incredible resilience there.
What does McIntyre do then?
Doesn't waste time. Just lays into Priest with the chair. Multiple shots across the back. Just pure punishment.
Man. And it kept escalating. I heard something about the chair around the neck.
Yeah, McIntyre wraps the chair on Priest's neck, goes for another Claymore.
But Priest counters this time.
Into a chokeslam. Huge counter. Looked like maybe the tide was turning.
Finally, some offense from Priest.
And he makes McIntyre pay, grabs the chair himself, and just unloads with his own chair shots.
Back and forth with the chair. Just brutal.
Totally consumed by it, both of them. Willing to take it and dish it out.
Okay, so then the tables become the focus. Chair gets wedged somewhere.
Yeah, the turnbuckles, yeah. Then McIntyre hits a spine buster, setting things up, building to something big with the tables.
Which he set up earlier.
Exactly. He puts one in the center of the ring, clear sign. Then gets Priest on the top rope, hits this blistering chop, tries for an avalanche white noise.
Risky move from the top.
But Priest counters it, lands on his feet.
Good counter. And then Priest uses the table.
Turns the tables, literally, hits the razor's edge.
His finisher.
Through the table in the middle of the ring. That looked like it had to be it.
But it wasn't.
Unbelievably, McIntyre kicks out again at 2. The amount of punishment these guys soaked up was just unreal.
Seriously. Where do you even go from there?
Well, McIntyre goes low, rakes the eyes.
Desperation tactic.
Pretty much. Trying to get any advantage in this war of attrition. And then another huge move.
What was it?
Future shock DDT. Onto the steel steps.
Onto the steps. Ouch. Surely that's it.
Priest kicks out. Again, the commentary guys were losing it, just talking about the sheer damage being absorbed.
Incredible. What happened next? Just trading blows.
Yeah, devolved into just palm strikes, chops. Like a primal fight. McIntyre lands a headbutt. Priest hits back with a lariat.
And then another big table spot involving the ones outside.
Right. Priest goes for the old school, his rope walk thing.
Yeah.
He maybe took a bit too long, hesitated.
And McIntyre made him pay.
Big time. Sent Priest crashing off the ropes through both tables on the floor.
Both tables. Devastating. That had to be the turning point.
Looked like it. It really felt like the end was near then. McIntyre drags him back in. Priest looks done.
And then the finish.
The final Claymore. But remember that chair wedged in the turnbuckle?
Yeah. Oh, no.
McIntyre hits the Claymore, driving Priest's head right into that chair.
Jeez. That sounds sickening.
The impact looked awful. The commentators reacted with, like, genuine shock. Said Priest might need a stretcher. Just brutal.
So McIntyre gets the pin.
Yep. After 13 minutes, 55 seconds, Drew McIntyre wins.
And the analysis afterwards. What were people saying?
Someone whose opinion carries, well, a lot of weight, Dave Meltzer. He weighed in on this one.
Indeed he did. Meltzer gave the Sin City Street Fight 4 1/4 stars.
Solid rating.
Very solid, especially from him, you know. He can be pretty critical. So that rating is like a strong stamp of approval on the match's intensity, the storytelling, the whole package within, you know, pro wrestling terms. What about the match quality itself? Mixed views.
Yeah, a bit. One review we looked at called it just okay. Felt maybe it was held back somehow. Expected more creativity, perhaps.
Interesting.
But another reviewer really enjoyed it. Saw it as a big win to elevate McIntyre even further. Push him back towards the main event scene, maybe?
And there were concerns about Priest. Losing momentum. Moving to SmackDown.
Definitely talk about that. What this loss means for him going forward, especially if he changes brands. Needs to rebuild a bit, maybe.
Any other little tidbits from the sources?
Yeah, one mentioned Nick Khan, the WWE exec, leaving during the match, which, you know, always gets people talking.
True. And throughout the show, there were other things happening, promotions and stuff.
Yeah, the usual WrestleMania cross-promotion.
Yeah.
Ads for Doom. The Dark Ages, which ties into McIntyre's gear, obviously.
Yeah. Available May 15th, apparently.
And a big push for a WWE TakeOver event in Perth, Australia, coming up in October.
That's the one with SmackDown, Raw, and a PLE. And potentially Cena's last match down under.
That's the one they were plugging, yeah. Plus, you know, celebs in the crowd. Jameer Gibbs, Daniel Cormier.
Tony Hinchcliffe?
Yep.
Got booed, apparently.
According to one source, yeah. And they even had the Goodyear blimp with Penta inside doing aerial shots.
Random. Okay. And the theme song.
Timeless by The Weeknd at Playboy Cardi. That was the official WrestleMania 41 theme.
Gotcha. So, okay, let's wrap this up. Putting it all together, this Sin City Street Fight, it was just brutal, really personal. The end of a year-long story.
Absolutely. You saw McIntyre's aggression, that calculated side, using social media.
The selfies.
And then Priest just showing incredible toughness, taking so much punishment.
Kind of makes you think, with those different reviews, what does make a great street fight for you, the listener? Is it the story, the crazy spots, the weapons, the sheer violence?
Yeah, it's subjective, isn't it? Different things appeal to different people.
For sure.
Okay, let's dive into this. WrestleMania Night 2. Wow. The atmosphere, I mean, you could just feel it, couldn't you? But for me, the Intercontinental Championship Fatal 4-Way, that was something else, just a whirlwind. And the finish totally threw me.
Oh, absolutely. And I think what made it stand out so much was the whole dynamic going in. You had Bron Breakker, right? This champion who just seemed, well, unbeatable.
Yeah, dominant.
Exactly. And then this field of challengers who were all hungry, but maybe felt like long shots. For a lot of people, it felt like Breakker retaining was almost a sure thing.
Right, which made the ending even crazier. So you've got Breakker, who's just been steamrolling everyone. Then Finn Balor, the veteran, you know he's always going to bring it.
Reliable.
And Penta, making his WrestleMania debut. Huge buzz around him, incredible athlete. And then, well, then there's Dominik Mysterio.
Always stirs the pot, doesn't he?
He brings that unpredictable factor. And it being a fatal 4-way for the IC title at WrestleMania, apparently the first time ever, that just added this whole extra layer. Felt like, okay, anything could happen here. And boy, did it.
Yeah, that first ever tag.
Yeah.
Especially for that specific title on that stage. It wasn't just trivia. It was like a signal, wasn't it? Like, okay, expect chaos. Don't expect the standard title defense here.
Totally. And even before the match started, the entrances were setting a tone. That video package was solid, the setting up Breaker's reign and the bad blood between the guys.
Mhm.
But Dominik's entrance, coming out wearing the Rey mask and then struggling to get it off, that was quite a visual.
It really was. It tapped right into his whole story, didn't it? This like constant battle with his father's legacy and the fact he was struggling with the mask. It just amplified that whole narrative of him trying to, break free or make his own mark.
Definitely. And you had the celebs there too, right?
Yeah.
Like Colby Covington, Metro Boomin, even Dean Norris Hank. Seeing them just kind of added to that big fight feel,
Yeah, reinforces that WrestleMania scale.
Right. Wrestling and sponsorships. Sometimes that combination throws up some, genuinely odd things.
Exactly.
The sponsor for this match was Dude Wipes.
Dude wipes. Okay, so for anyone maybe not familiar, those are basically moist toilet wipes marketed towards men for, cleaning up. Apparently the announcers during Dominik's entrance, they ran with it.
It did.
Yeah.
They actually, they comically compared Dominik Mysterio to feces.
Wow. Okay, so like here comes Dominik, and speaking of things you need to wipe away, something like that.
Basically, yeah.
But okay, the match itself, bell rings, and Breaker makes a beeline straight for Dominik.
Right away. It felt like, okay, the champ's establishing dominance, maybe going for the guy he sees as the weakest link.
Makes sense tactically.
Yeah.
Try and take someone out early in a four-way. But that's the beauty or the danger of these matches, isn't it? Those temporary alliances pop up and just change everything.
Exactly. And we saw it immediately. Dominik and Belair kind of teamed up for a second there. Smart move, really. 2-on-1 against Breaker's power.
Makes perfect sense.
But then Penta just exploded into the match. His speed, his agility, that crossbody, the dive to the outside, the crowd was instantly into him.
Oh yeah, his debut was electric. And his style, that high-flying lucha stuff, is such a great contrast to Breaker's sheer power. It just like immediately made the match feel more dynamic.
But Breaker's power, man. That running shoulder block looked absolutely vicious, and then slamming Penta, press slamming Belair, just reminding everyone who the powerhouse was.
No question about his strength. Yeah. But then things started getting really interesting. Penta gets that sacrifice arm breaker locked onto Belair. Looked nasty.
Brutal submission.
But then Breaker just scoops both of them up.
Ah.
A simultaneous suplex on both guys.
Ooh.
Come on.
You just don't see that. Incredible display of power.
Huge statement by Breaker. But, like we said, in these matches, showing off like that can sometimes leave you open. And that's kind of what happened next, wasn't it? With Carlito suddenly appearing at ringside.
Oh man, Carlito, that was a total surprise, wasn't it?
Completely out of left field.
And he wasn't just there to watch. We saw Breaker hit that double vertical suplex, then the Breakensteiner on Belair. That was a really close near fall.
It looked like it could have been it.
Then Dominik, always the opportunist, tries the 619 on Belair, but Belair's too smart for it, blocks it, fights back.
And what was really noticeable around this point was the crowd. They actually started getting behind Dominik. Despite him being the heel for so long.
Yeah, it was weird, right?
It was. You could hear it building. Maybe it was the underdog thing in this specific match, or maybe just appreciating his, his hustle.
It was a definite shift. Crazy. Then Penta hits the Penta driver on Belair. Looked devastating. That had to be it.
Looked like lights out.
But Breaker dives in, breaks up the pin, just relentless pace. And then Carlito gets involved again, pulls down the top rope, Breaker goes flying out.
Carlito playing spoiler, clearly trying to shift the momentum. And it worked for a moment. But what Breaker did next, that's the WrestleMania moment everyone's going to be talking about.
The announce table spot, oh my God.
Ah, yes.
Carlito clears off the desk, the U.S. one, and then Breaker just launches himself from the other desk, spearing Carlito through the desk.
It was unbelievable. The U.S. desk just crumpled, the impact.
Wow. The announcers were losing their minds. You could tell they were genuinely shocked.
And Pat McAfee on commentary, Meltzer called him out on this, right?
He did. McAfee yelled something like, Breaker jumped 15 feet. A bit of an exaggeration, maybe.
Maybe just a tad. But it definitely added to the moment, the spectacle of it all.
For sure. Just an incredible visual.
An absolutely insane feat of athleticism and power. Took Carlito completely out of the picture. But, move like that takes a toll on you, too. Left Breaker vulnerable for a moment.
And who was there? Dominik, ready to pounce. Breaker gets back in, spears Penta. Looks like he's going to retain. But Dominik hits a dropkick, sends Breaker into the ropes.
Perfect setup.
619 connects. The place went absolutely nuts. Dominik goes up top for the frog splash.
This is it, right? This is his moment.
But Belair cuts him off, just yanks him down, and the boos. The crowd hated
Balor
him.
playing the veteran heel perfectly there, denying the crowd what they suddenly wanted. Then he goes to work on Breaker, sling blade,
Yep.
shotgun dropkick into the corner, goes up top, coup de grace, connects clean.
Looked like Balor had just stolen it right there at the end. He goes for the pin on Breaker.
1, 2, but then Dominik Mysterio from the top rope, frog splash, onto Finn Balor, his own partner.
What?
Pins Balor. 1, 2, 3. Dominik Mysterio wins. He's the new Intercontinental Champion. The place just exploded.
Yeah.
Disbelief, but cheers. The commentary team really jumped on that too. The whole proving the salty haters wrong narrative.
Yeah.
By any means necessary.
Lie, cheat, steal. It fits perfectly now, doesn't it?
It really does. But man, the implications of Judgment Day, awkward is putting it mildly.
Oh, absolutely.
Ugh.
How does that stable even function now? Does Balor just let it go? I doubt it. And just for context, Meltzer gave it 4.25 stars, called it another great match on the show. He also mentioned something, the commentary missed Dom wearing a Rey Mysterio senior mask. What's up with that, potentially?
Well, the rating confirms it delivered in the ring, right? 4.25 is solid. The mask thing, though, is interesting. Subtle. Could be Dom, like acknowledging the family legacy on the big stage.
Yeah.
Or maybe a little mind game against Ray Jr. without saying anything. Adds a layer, doesn't it? An unspoken story beat.
For sure. And Meltzer pointed out it echoed the finish from earlier that night, the women's triple threat.
Yeah. With Io Sky, Bianca Belair, and Rhea Ripley. Another kind of surprise win. Maybe it was a theme for the night. Unpredictability.
Could be. Deliberate booking to keep people guessing, perhaps? Just, oh, wow, that finish was brilliant, really, because it protects Breaker, right?
Yeah.
He lost the title but didn't get pinned. Keeps him looking strong.
Good point. And the crowd reaction. They completely bought into Dom winning. It felt like a genuine turning point for him.
His celebration was great, too. He started walking up the ramp, then just stopped, turned, and sprinted back to the room with the belt, totally soaking it all in. Like, even he couldn't believe it.
Yeah, pure emotion. And this just opens up so many doors now, doesn't
Yeah.
it? Breaker losing the title without being pinned.
Yeah.
Maybe he moves up to the world title picture now.
Could be. Feels like it.
And the Judgment Day stuff, I mean, Balor and Dominik, that's got to boil over now.
Yeah.
Could easily lead to the whole group just imploding. It kind of reminded me of some other big multi-man finishes where a betrayal just changes everything.
Absolutely. So, Dominik Mysterio, probably the guy least expected to walk out with the gold, leaves WrestleMania as the Intercontinental Champion. Just a genuinely shocking, memorable finish.
Yeah, absolutely nuts. So I guess the big questions hanging in the air are, what does this actually mean for Dominik going forward and for Judgment Day's future?
Yeah.
Feels unstable.
Totally unstable.
Yeah.
And how does Breaker react? He lost his belt but wasn't beaten. You know he's not going to take that lightly.
No way. He's going to want revenge or maybe just move on to destroying someone else. It's thrown everything up in the air.
It really has.
You think you've seen pretty much everything at WrestleMania, right?
Yeah.
Especially with a legend like Randy Orton hitting his 20th appearance.
Yeah. Huge milestone.
We were all geared up for Orton versus Kevin Owens, and then bam, the news drops. Owens is out, neck injury, needs surgery.
Awful timing for KO.
Totally. So Orton's left without an opponent. What happens next? An open challenge.
Okay.
But the answer, well, that was the real shocker. Joe Hendry, the TNA World Champion.
Absolute. Nobody saw that coming.
All right.
And that's what we're diving into today. We want to unpack this whole thing. How did this bizarre matchup even happen? What went down in the ring?
And the fallout,
Yeah.
right? What did it mean for everyone involved?
Exactly. The ripple effects, the whole picture.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Orton's in the ring, WrestleMania, celebrating 2 decades. He grabs the mic, says he's ready to fight, issues the open challenge. The crowd must have been buzzing. Who were people even guessing might walk out?
Oh, yeah. The speculation machine went into overdrive. Online. You heard names like Aleister Black, maybe? Miro?
Interesting choices. Guys with some history, some edge.
Right. People who could believably step up to Orton. The assumption was, someone already in the WWE system, probably.
And then the music hits. But it's not Black, not Miro. It's Joe Hendry's theme. The TNA champion himself walks out. What was that like? The reaction?
You could almost hear jaws dropping through the commentary. Just genuine shock. Like, wait, is that?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I bet.
Hendry comes out, does his whole entrance routine, the spin, everything. The crowd seemed, well, surprised, but kind of into it, too. Definitely a jolt of energy.
The TNA World Champion. All the way from Edinburgh, Scotland. 252 pounds.
Now, Hendry, he's not totally unknown to WWE fans, is he?
No, not completely. Especially if you follow things wider than just WWE. He had that viral song, remember? Super catchy.
Oh, yeah. I believe in Joe Hendry. You couldn't escape it for a while there.
Right. And he actually got a pretty decent reaction at the Royal Rumble earlier this year, too. People knew who he was.
And he popped up in NXT late last year for a bit, didn't he?
He did, yeah. So there's some history there. Plus, he's not some rookie. We're talking over 15 years in the business. Decorated amateur background, too. He's legit.
Meltzer actually noted that, too. Said the crowd went crazy singing his song when he came out. So there was definite recognition there.
So when a champ from another big company walks out, the first thing you think is title match?
Mm-hmm.
I heard Pat McAfee on commentary wondered the same thing.
He did, yeah. McAfee immediately asked if the TNA title was on the line. Imagine that. Champion versus champion.
I've been nuts.
But Michael Cole jumped in pretty quick to clarify, nope, TNA title not on the line. This was purely about Hendry answering Orton's challenge for his big 20th Mania match.
Okay, so less about promotion versus promotion, more of a special moment.
Exactly. Framing it that way was probably important.
All right, so the bell rings.
Yeah.
TNA champ versus WWE legend, WrestleMania.
Mm.
How did the match actually play out? Did Hendry get a chance to show his stuff?
He actually started strong, got a quick roll-up attempt, almost caught Orton right away.
Oh, wow.
Then a shoulder tackle that knocked Orton down, followed by a neck breaker. He even took a moment, played to the crowd, did his pose. You could tell he was soaking it in, not intimidated.
That's huge for him personally. Gotta be. But it's Randy Orton. He wasn't going to stay on the defensive for long, I imagine.
No, you know Orton. He turned it around pretty quick. Short arm reversal, then a classic Orton move, the Greco-Roman eye poke.
Uh-huh. Vintage Orton.
Right. Then a couple of clotheslines, power slam, and you know what comes next. The draping DDT. That whole sequence felt like Orton saying, okay, playtime's over.
The DDT. That's usually the setup for the RKO, isn't it? Did Hendry see it coming? Could he counter it?
He did, the first time anyway. He actually blocked the RKO attempt.
No way.
Yeah, the commentators were surprised too. And then Hendry hoisted him up, hit a big fall-away slam, showed off some power, got right back up, hit the pose again, really trying to make his mark.
You got some good moments in that.
Yeah.
But you just knew it was coming eventually. The RKO.
Yeah, unfortunately for Joe Hendry, you just can't escape it forever. Classic, Orton style, RKO out of nowhere. And that was it. Pinfall. 1, 2, 3.
How long did the match actually last?
About 3 minutes, give or take.
3 minutes. Wow, okay. Yeah, I can see why some fans were calling it a glorified squash. That feels short, especially for a world champion at WrestleMania.
It definitely kicked off a bait, didn't it?
Yeah.
Good booking or bad. On one hand, TNA gets its champion on the biggest stage imaginable, massive exposure.
Right, eyeballs.
But on the other hand, does losing that quickly, that decisively, make TNA look, I don't know, second tier compared to WWE or even NXT? It's a tricky balance.
So the match is over. Orton wins. What happens right after the bell? Did they shake hands? Was it respectful?
Initially, yes. It looked like a really classy moment. Orton helped Hendry up. They shook hands. Orton even raised Hendry's arm. Like, good fight. Welcome to the big stage. A real show of respect.
Okay, nice. A good sport. That
Hey.
feels right for a milestone match like Orton's. But knowing Orton, I feel like there's a but coming.
You feel right. Just as you thought it was over, Orton spins him around. Second RKO.
Yep. Out of absolutely nowhere again. Out cold.
Ouch.
Yep. And then to add insult to injury, Orton does this mocking imitation of Hendry's spin around pose over him.
Oh, man. That changes the whole vibe, doesn't it? From respect to, well, dominance. What did the commentators make of that twist?
They were kind of split, actually. You heard discussion about, the short match time and then the post-match stuff. Was the second RKO and the taunt necessary? Was it a bit much after the handshake?
Others kind of saw it as Orton just emphatically putting his stamp on his night, making sure there was zero doubt who the star was on his 20th WrestleMania. Reasserting the pecking order, maybe?
So that brings us back to the big question. Was this whole thing ultimately good for TNA, or did it kind of backfire? What message does it send about how WWE views them, perhaps? And this is where Meltzer's analysis really kicks in.
Because back in the day, that would be seen as just burying the other guy and the whole promotion.
Totally. Having another company's world champion lose that fast and then take another finisher? Unthinkable in, like, the Monday Night Wars era.
But Meltzer points out things are different now. Wins, losses, titles. Maybe they don't mean quite the same thing in the grand scheme of interpromotional stuff.
It's a weird line, though. Did Hendry gain anything just by being on the Mania stage? Massive exposure, sure.
Or did he just look completely non-competitive against a top WWE guy? That's the debate, isn't it?
And Meltzer brings up the perception issue, too. That maybe TNA is viewed internally or by some fans as, like, a third-rate promotion.
Oof. Harsh, but maybe reflects a certain reality in terms of scale and perception.
So their champion, by extension, isn't seen on the same level, maybe NXT level, Meltzer suggested.
Which makes the quick loss, and especially that second RKO, seem, well, less surprising from that viewpoint, maybe even expected.
And that's where the controversy comes from, right? The WWE basically devalued TNA's top title and champion on purpose.
Well, Meltzer heard that from the WWE side, the plan was always a quick Orton win via RKO. That was told ahead of time.
Oh, okay.
So they needed someone for that spot.
Yeah.
And instead of maybe debuting a new NXT guy and having him lose fast.
They used Hendry, a non-contracted guy, as surprise element.
Exactly. And apparently the plan for Orton versus Cena at Backlash was already in motion, so this quick win fit that narrative for Orton.
There was also that detail Meltzer mentioned. Orton was given a list of potential opponents.
Yeah. And he apparently chose Hendry.
Huh. Wonder why. Maybe he liked the song.
Huh. Maybe. Or maybe he just felt Hendry was the right fit for that specific role, that quick match.
Meltzer did offer an alternative booking idea, though, didn't he?
He did. Like, Orton wins fast, okay, fine. But then maybe some heels interfere.
Okay.
Orton RKO's one, Hendry takes out the other one, maybe gets a bit of shine back. Then Orton gives him the nod of respect.
So Hendry still loses, but he looks way more credible, a threat, even after the loss.
Right. But that second RKO, Meltzer's conclusion was pretty blunt. He said it made Hendry look like a WWE prelim guy or below.
Well, yeah, that's rough for the TNA champion.
You can argue the exposure was priceless. Millions saw the TNA champion who might never watch TNA otherwise. Huge win in that sense.
True.
But others would say, yeah, they saw him get beat in 3 minutes and then kind of clowned afterwards. Does that help the perception of TNA as a competitive alternative? Maybe not. Even Cole's initial shock, I can't believe it's Joe Hendry, kind of underlines that surprise, the unexpectedness of a TNA guy being there.
Interesting point. Okay, let's go backstage. What happened after the cameras went off? Did Hendry say anything?
He did, yeah. There was a digital exclusive interview. And what he focused on was actually the crowd reaction. He said he was surprised and thankful for how positive the fans were towards him.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, he even joked about using his spin more because the crowd seemed to like it. So he was definitely looking for the positives, focusing on that connection.
Good for him. What about how this all came together? A TNA champion showing up at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
That doesn't just happen. How secret was it?
Oh, incredibly secret. Reports suggest talks started quietly between WWE and TNA right after KO got injured, but they kept it under wraps like crazy.
Like really tight.
Super tight. Apparently, Hendry's name wasn't even on the internal WWE run sheets for the show. That tells you how badly they wanted it to be a genuine surprise.
Wow. So this wasn't something planned for ages. Was there any prior WWE interest in Hendry?
There seems to have been, yeah. Some sources say WWE had liked him for a while. There was even talk, apparently, of him doing a Raw appearance once when they were in Glasgow.
Oh, really? What happened?
Well, the story goes that a TNA executive at the time vetoed it. Didn't want Hendry potentially taking a loss on WWE TV. Some whisper that might have even played into that exec eventually leaving TNA.
Huh. So TNA wasn't always keen on this sort of thing. Makes the WrestleMania appearance even more significant. What was the feeling inside TNA this time around, letting their champ go potentially lose on WWE's biggest show?
Seems like the thinking shifted. Reports suggest the mood inside TNA was actually pretty positive about it this time. The feeling was that the sheer visibility, the eyeballs on the brand at WrestleMania, that benefit outweighed the risk of the loss. A huge opportunity, basically.
That's a very business-minded way to look at it.
Yeah.
Did Hendry himself comment on the squash match talk?
He did. He pushed back on that label in an interview, I think, on SiriusXM. He argued, look, he got offense in, he had moments. It wasn't like he got completely steamrolled instantly.
Fair enough.
He even compared it to, like, John Cena losing quickly at a WrestleMania once.
Right.
Saying a short match against a top guy doesn't automatically mean you're, nothing.
Didn't he frame his whole role as TNA champion in a specific way? Like beyond just wins and losses?
Exactly. He talked about how his focus as champion is on the business of TNA, about getting as many eyeballs on TNA wrestling as possible. He clearly saw WrestleMania through that lens, a strategic move for the whole company.
Smart perspective.
Yeah.
And wasn't there some advice he got backstage from a pretty big name? CM Punk.
That's right. Hendry mentioned Punk pulled him aside afterwards, and Punk apparently told him that's exactly how it should have gone.
Wow, really?
Yeah, Punk felt a longer match might not have actually helped Hendry as much, and that, hey, there's no shame in taking an RKO and losing to a legend like Randy Orton at WrestleMania. That's got to be validating, hearing that from Punk.
Definitely valuable perspective. So it sounds like the main goal really was just creating that WrestleMania moment, not necessarily a competitive epic. Were any other names floated for Orton's opponent?
There was at least one other name mentioned in reports, Jeff Hardy.
Another TNA guy with huge name recognition.
Exactly. So WWE apparently considered Hardy too, but obviously went with Hendry in the end.
Interesting. So they were definitely looking towards TNA for that surprise factor. It really highlights that they didn't have a plan B ready from their own roster once Owens went down.
Seems that way. The priority became creating buzz, a moment people would talk about, rather than trying to build a quick story for someone else.
And speaking of buzz, they even got Hendry merch up on the WWE shop site pretty fast, didn't they?
They did. A t-shirt and hoodie popped up right after his appearance. Shows they were ready to capitalize on that sudden spotlight, even if just for a short time. Quick work.
Okay, so let's boil this all down. We've covered a lot of ground. What are the key takeaways from this whole very unexpected situation? What should listeners really take away?
Well, first, just the shock value, right?
Yeah.
The TNA champ facing Orton at Mania proves wrestling can still deliver genuine surprises, and cross-promotional stuff gets people talking.
Definitely.
Second, the debate around the booking. Was it smart exposure for TNA, or did the quick loss hurt their champ's credibility? It shows how tricky these collaborations can be. There are different ways to look at it.
For sure.
Third, regardless of how you felt about the match, Joe Hendry got himself noticed on a massive stage. That's got to be good for him, and potentially TNA, long-term.
Yeah, huge exposure.
And finally, it just reinforces that WrestleMania is about creating those big, memorable moments. Sometimes that means pulling a rabbit out of a hat, even if that rabbit is the TNA World Champion.
So, WrestleMania 41, Night 2, we saw this really fascinating clash, didn't we? AJ Styles, a legend, basically, against Logan Paul.
Yeah, the internet guy turned WWE superstar. It's quite the matchup on paper.
Totally. We want to dig into the entrances, that drone thing.
Oh, yeah, the drone.
The interference, the styles clashing,
Yeah.
and just how people felt about it, because the reactions were kind of all over the place.
Okay, let's do it. Where should we start? Maybe the entrances. They really set the stage.
Good call. Paul's entrance was, well, it was pure Logan Paul, wasn't it?
Uh-huh. He comes out with this drone, like filming himself, filming the VIPs.
Yeah. And then it flies off around the stadium, these big aerial shots, before coming back to him. It was slick. Very techy. The commentators even made that Falcon comparison, right? Setting out Red Wing.
They did. It's all about content creation with him, isn't it? Extending his brand, engaging that online audience even before he steps through the ropes. It's very 2025.
Then contrast that with AJ Styles. Music hits, he walks out. Simple, classic.
All business, focused on the match.
Pretty much, though somebody caught that sign on the hard cam, Prime makes me gag.
Huh. Yeah, saw that. A little nod to the brand war simmering underneath.
Definitely sets up that whole dynamic, the wrestler versus the influencer who built this huge thing outside the business.
And the video package before the match really hammered that home, too.
Oh, absolutely, with the rhyming voiceover.
Yeah, painting Styles as the guy who grinded for years, paid his dues across the globe.
Right, earned it the hard way. And then Paul, who kind of rocketed in, powered by fame and fortune from elsewhere, honor versus fame, basically. Earned greatness versus, I guess, manufactured stardom.
It taps into that bigger debate, doesn't it? Tradition versus the new way, experience versus, viral impact. You see it everywhere, not just wrestling.
So true. Okay, bell rings. What happens first?
They lock up collar and elbow. Pretty standard start. Styles uses his experience, gets Paul in the corner initially.
But Paul just uses that size difference. Reverses it pretty quick.
Exactly. That's the early Story Styles technique against Paul's raw athleticism and power. Bit of a stalemate.
And doesn't stay in the ring for long.
Nope. Spills outside fairly fast. Styles gets a few shots in, uses the ring skirt, classic veteran move. But then Paul turns it around, sends Styles into the barricade, hard, and then into the ring post. You felt that momentum shift there.
Yeah, he did. Paul taking control, using the environment. Pretty aggressive.
And then he goes airborne, that slingshot pescado to the floor.
Yes. Springboard dive. Followed it up, slamming Styles' head on the Spanish announce table. Standard heel stuff, but effective.
But then the drone comes back into play.
Right. This was weird. He goes over the Prime Station, grabs the drone he came out with, and we get this extended sequence, felt like a minute or two maybe, where the main broadcast switches to the drone's camera feed, flying around inside the ring.
Yeah, it was different. Some people probably thought it was cool, innovative, a new angle.
But others, and I kind of lean this way, felt it just stopped the match cold. Like, it didn't really add anything to the fight itself.
I get that. It felt like maybe there should have been more of a payoff. Like, was he going to use it as a weapon or distract AJ? But,
Yep.
whoop, just flew around.
Exactly. Bit of a letdown after the build-up. Anyway, back to the wrestling. Paul hit some big moves.
He did. The Paul from Grace, that springboard thing, got a 2 count.
Uh-huh. Then the overbomb. But Styles just managed to grab the ropes.
Yeah, showed desperation. Good save. Paul also landed a big boot, that running split leg drop thing, for only 1.
Only 1? Wow.
Yeah, then a regular moonsault press for 2. Even pulled out a buckshot lariat. Another near fall.
He's definitely adding more moves to his arsenal. It's not just power spots.
True. He's showing some range. But Styles, I mean, he's AJ Styles. He weathered the storm.
He did. Fired back with those quick punches, the phenomenal blitz combo.
Yep. The Ushi-Goroshi, that sliding forearm smash, he does so well.
Leaping clothesline in the corner, brainbuster for a 2 count. The commentators mentioned he looked bigger, right? More muscle.
They did, yeah. Maybe adapting his style a bit. He also hit that spinning rack bomb, another 2 count. Man, lots of near falls.
Kept you guessing. And then that sequence where Styles finally goes for the Styles Clash.
But Paul scouts it, rolls through into a senton, then hits a lion salt.
Another near fall. That was close.
Super close. And later they had that crazy spot where they both countered each other's Styles Clash attempts, and then both ended up hitting it on the other guy at different points.
Wild. Just shows the athleticism on display, really. And the ring IQ from both.
Totally. Okay, so that brings us to the finish.
Yeah, this is where it gets messy. Logan Paul's buddy, Jeff, shows up ringside.
Holding brass knuckles.
Uh-oh. Tries to slide him to Logan. But wait. Karrion Kross appears out of nowhere.
And the crowd actually popped for Kross. That was kind of surprising, wasn't it?
It really was. So Kross intercepts Jeff, gets the knucks.
But then he turns to Styles, actually calls him Alan, his real name.
Yeah. Please, Alan, use the knucks. Like begging him to cheat to win.
What a twist. But Styles refuses.
Flat out refuses, punches Kross instead, and got booed for it by some sections.
That's fascinating. The crowd wanting the win so bad they'd boo Styles for not cheating shows how invested they were, I guess. Or maybe just how much they wanted Logan to lose.
Could be.
And Meltzer's review actually talks about this, about how fans sometimes want the good guy, the babyface, to, you know, fight dirty when the bad guy, the heel, does.
Huh. Like an eye for an eye kind of thing. Get retribution.
Yeah. Meltzer said fans can get frustrated if the hero doesn't take that chance to get even. He compared it to another match finish that night.
John Cena beating Cody Rhodes. Yeah. So Kross is down, Jeff is dealt with, Styles sets up for the phenomenal forearm.
The big finale.
But Paul ducks under it.
Yeah.
Lands that punch, the titanium punch they called it.
Oof. Connects clean.
And follows up immediately with the pulverizer, his finisher. 1, 2, 3. Logan Paul wins.
Wow. Okay. So, a controversial finish, to say the least. Interference, weapons, moral choices.
Definitely. The commentary team right after, they were talking about that dynamic, you know, Paul's athleticism, how fast he's improved versus Styles' experience. But they also hinted at that jealousy factor around Paul's rise.
That whole paying your dues thing again. Paul kind of skipped the line because of his outside fame, and you could feel that tension. Does he belong? Has he earned this spot?
Exactly. And the post-match reactions we saw were really mixed.
Yeah. What were people saying?
Well, one perspective was that it was actually the weakest match of the night. Felt like a standard TV match, not much heat, kind of forgettable.
Ouch. Really? Weakest of the night.
But that's what one source felt, yeah. Another thought it just didn't deliver on the potential, given who was involved. So the crowd seemed kind of quiet, not fully engaged the whole time.
That's interesting. Maybe the drone spot took them out of it. Or the pacing.
Could be. Okay, so how did Dave Meltzer see it in his review?
Meltzer gave it 3.5 stars. He called the match itself good, but he did note the crowd maybe wasn't like super hot for the whole thing.
Okay, so technically solid, but maybe lacking that electric atmosphere sometimes.
Potentially. And he confirmed the whole sequence. Jeff, Kross, the knuckles, Styles refusing them.
And did Meltzer comment on Styles' decision?
Yeah, he doubled down on that idea about the fan reaction. That some fans react negatively when the good guy doesn't, well, sink to the bad guy's level when given the chance.
So Styles trying to take the high road might have actually disappointed some fans who wanted him to just use the weapon.
That seems to be Meltzer's interpretation. His summary was basically that Paul won by smartly taking advantage of the chaos Kross created. Good match, but maybe a slightly unsatisfying ending for some because of how it went down.
Okay, so there was also this idea that maybe the match tried too hard to be a traditional wrestling match, when Paul's strength is more in those big breathtaking spots, as a one person put it. Maybe leaning into that more would have worked better for Mania.
That makes sense. Play to his strengths, especially on the biggest stage.
And there was definitely a sense of disappointment for AJ. You know, another WrestleMania singles match for him that just didn't quite feel special or memorable in the way his classics have.
Yeah, you hate to see that for a guy like Styles. He deserves those big Mania moments.
And the finish itself, with Jeff and Cross, that just sparked a whole debate, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
About fighting fair versus doing whatever it takes, especially since other matches that night had similar interference.
Right. The consistency issue. If interference is okay sometimes, but not others, it gets confusing for the audience. What are the rules? Does honor matter, or is it just about getting the win?
Good question. And surprisingly, the match went almost 18 minutes.
That's pretty long for a non-main event Mania match.
One of the longest of the weekend, apparently, which, again, some felt maybe dragged a bit if the engagement wasn't always there.
Length doesn't always equal quality. Fair enough. Sometimes tighter's better.
Zooming out a bit, they dropped some big WrestleMania stats during the show, like 421 total matches ever, 456 different wrestlers.
Wow. Across 26 cities, it really puts the history and scale of the event into perspective. It's huge.
It really is. They also plugged that new Netflix docuseries, WWE Unreal, going behind the scenes with writers and stars.
Oh, yeah. That could be really interesting, seeing how the sausage gets made, so to speak.
Definitely potential there.
Yeah.
And, of course, lots of celebrities dotted around, as always at Mania.
Part of the spectacle, right? Blurs those lines between sports, entertainment, pop culture.
For sure. So, wrapping this up, Logan Paul gets the win over AJ Styles. We had the big moves, the memorable for weirdness drone sequence, the Cross and Jeff interference, and that controversial titanium punch finish.
Yeah, it was a real clash. The established legend versus the new phenom. Different styles, different approaches, different narratives colliding. You know, you really think you've seen it all in wrestling, right? And then WrestleMania 41 just happened.
Oh, yeah.
And after like almost a whole year away, this huge name, someone everyone associates with the sport, just makes this comeback.
Absolutely. WrestleMania Night 2, it really delivered a huge shakeup for the WWE Women's Tag Team titles.
It wasn't just a match, was it? It felt more like a whole unfolding drama.
A masterclass in surprise, really. That unpredictable thing wrestling does so well.
Right. So going into it, the expectation was the champs, Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez, defending against Lyra, Valkyria, and Bayley, seemed pretty straightforward, you know?
Yeah.
A standard title defense.
Yeah, seems set in stone. But then, the curveball. This backstage attack takes Bayley out. Shoulder injury, reported the night before.
Which, you know, a kayfabe injury we should probably mention.
Right, part of the story. But suddenly, Lyra's left needing a partner. And fast. 24 hours notice.
And that's where it got really interesting, didn't it?
Okay, so let's set the table properly. Liv and Raquel, champs. Lyra and Bayley, challengers.
And it's important to remember, Lyra and Bayley didn't just get handed this shot. They won that gauntlet match just before Mania.
Exactly. That win made them totally legit contenders. Established them.
So when Bayley gets pulled because of that backstage incident, that storyline injury.
Yeah, that injury.
It just completely throws a wrench in the works, right? It signals, okay, something else is happening here. The script's been flipped.
Which brings us to the million-dollar question. Who steps up? Who partners with Lyra?
Speculation was just running wild online. And, well, turns out the rumors were actually on the money this time.
Becky Lynch, making her big return.
Her first appearance since that cage match with Liv Morgan, almost a year ago? May, I think?
That's the one. And even though people were kind of guessing it might be her, the reaction in the arena, reports say it was absolutely massive.
Off the charts. And what's really smart is how they immediately leaned into the history, right? Between Becky and Liv.
Oh, yeah, the commentary team jumped right on it, reminding everyone how Liv claimed she had retired Becky.
That instantly adds so much more weight to it. It's not just a random return. There's history, there's bad blood, stakes.
That kind of storytelling, pulling on those existing threads, that really lands with the fans who follow closely. Makes the moment much richer.
You could almost feel it through the screen, couldn't you? People in the arena, huge ovation. I heard one report mention seeing a fan actually in tears.
Wow. See, that's the connection Becky has, that genuine emotional reaction from the crowd.
It's gold in wrestling. It just amplifies everything.
Totally. And it sets the stage perfectly for the match itself, knowing Becky's return is the absolute focal point.
Okay, so the match gets underway, bell rings, Liv Morgan and Becky Lynch start things off.
But only for a second, right? Liv tags out almost immediately. Brings in Raquel Rodriguez.
Yeah, quick tag. So then it's Becky and Raquel locking up. Bit of back and forth. I think Becky went for a sleeper.
Early sleeper attempt. Then Becky tags in Lyra Valkyria.
And Lyra comes in looking pretty sharp. Lots of energy.
Definitely. Showed off her athleticism right away.
Yeah.
Flurry of strikes, the cartwheel into the enziguri, the arm drag.
Yeah.
Looked good.
Strong showing for her on the big stage. But then the champs, Liv and Raquel, they kind of took over for a bit, didn't they?
Yeah, they used their experience as a team. Isolated Lyra.
Classic tag strategy. Cut off the ring, quick tags, keep her away from Becky, wear her down.
Showcased their chemistry, Morgan and Rodriguez. They worked well together there. There was maybe one slightly awkward moment early on.
Oh, yeah?
Raquel lifting Becky for a slam just looked a tiny bit off. Minor thing, probably, but some people noticed.
Right, a little hiccup. But like we said, the main thing everyone was waiting for
Hot tag.
was that hot tag to Becky. And when it finally came, the place just exploded.
Oh, yeah. You could feel the energy surge.
Yeah.
Big time.
Becky comes in like a house of fire. Signature moves, clothesline.
Exploder suplex. Went straight for the disarm her. The crowd was totally with her, building with every move.
But Raquel was there, right?
Yeah.
Broke up the submission with a kick. Smart move.
Kept her partner in the match, and the action continued, back and forth. Liv hit her finisher, the Oblivion.
Looked like it might be over.
But Lyra made the save. Dove in, broke the pin. Showed a lot of fight protecting Becky there.
And then Lyra hit that big move on the outside, right? The tornado DDT on Raquel.
Yep, took Raquel out of the equation momentarily. Really well-executed move, too. Clean.
And that basically paved the way.
For the finish. Becky hits the manhandle slam on Liv Morgan. 1, 2, 3. New champs.
And instantly, the commentary calls Lyra 2 belts, which is kind of catchy.
Well, she is also the Women's Intercontinental Champion. So it fits.
True. So yeah, the match itself, maybe 8-9 minutes. Relatively quick for a title change at WrestleMania.
About 8 minutes, 40 seconds, yeah. Not super long.
So what was the verdict afterwards? The analysis, the reactions, sounds like people were a bit divided on the match quality.
That seems fair to say. Some folks felt it was, just okay, serviceable.
Not necessarily a technical masterpiece.
Right. The focus was clearly, undeniably, on Becky's return and the title switcheroo. That was the story they wanted to tell.
But others felt it did what it needed to do, achieved its purpose.
Exactly. It delivered the big moment, the feel-good return, the title change. Mission accomplished on that front, you could argue. But let's bring in Dave Meltzer's analysis.
Right, the critical perspective. He rated the match 2 stars.
2 stars, which, considering the reaction, might seem low to some.
His reasoning apparently was that the match structure was maybe a bit too focused on building to Becky's hot tag.
Meaning Lyra took most of the beating just to set up Becky's big comeback.
Yeah, that seems to be the gist. And that the biggest crowd reactions were specifically for Becky, not necessarily the match as a whole.
So he's looking more at the technical flow and storytelling balance of the entire match, not just the high spots or the return pop.
Exactly. A more critical look at the in-ring narrative structure, suggesting maybe it relied too heavily on the surprise factor.
Definitely valuable perspective.
Okay, but what about the whole Bayley situation? Taking her out of a match she earned, even if it was the plan all along for the story. That got some heat, didn't it?
It definitely did. Some people called it, a pretty lousy thing to do to the character, storyline or not.
Yeah, it potentially undermines her credibility a bit, takes away this big opportunity she and Lyra won fair and square.
That's the argument, yeah. It raises questions about her standing, where she goes next. Does this fuel a new fire in her character, or does it just feel like she got sidelined?
We'll have to see how they follow up on that one. And then there's Becky, coming back after nearly a year off, straight into a title win.
Yeah, that sparks some debate, too. The whole wrestler takes time off, comes back, immediately gets a top spot thing.
We've seen that comparison made before, maybe with someone like Charlotte Flair sometimes.
It's a recurring discussion point in wrestling, definitely. But I think it's fair to say Becky's connection with the crowd is maybe different, exceptionally strong.
More universally popular, maybe? So people are maybe more willing to accept it.
Perhaps. That fan support gives her and the company a bit more leeway for that kind of booking, It just lands differently.
But the story wasn't over. Not by a long shot.
No kidding. The very next night, Raw, things go sideways. Fast.
They announce a rematch right away, tag titles on the line again.
Which, sometimes happens. But then Liv and Raquel win them back, just like that.
Yeah, the reign lasted, 24 hours?
Barely. Which maybe suggests that the WrestleMania win was more about the moment, Becky's return, than about a long run for them as a team.
That quick title change often signals something else is coming, doesn't it? Like the focus is shifting away from the belts themselves.
Exactly. It often sets up a more personal feud. And in this case, boy, did it ever.
Because after Liv and Raquel win the titles back, Becky helps Lyra up.
Seems like a moment of sportsmanship, maybe disappointment.
And then just attacks her. Brutally.
Just turns on her. The descriptions were pretty graphic. Multiple manhandle slams.
Yeah.
Vicious stuff.
The commentators were losing their minds. You could hear the shock. They kept bringing up the mentor angle, the betrayal.
It wasn't just a standard heel-turn beatdown. It felt personal, malicious even.
Absolutely. And Lyra's reaction just described as utter shock, disbelief, which, I mean, you can understand why, right?
Completely blindsided. After winning the titles together just the night before, it just throws everything up in the air. Why? What was the motivation?
What flips that switch for Becky to turn on her mentee like that? It just completely destroys the narrative from WrestleMania. Okay, let's talk individual performances. Liv Morgan. Sounds like people are really digging her heel work lately.
Yeah, the consensus seems to be she's really settling into that role. More comfortable, more effective at getting under people's skin.
Growing into it. Becoming more seasoned as a villain.
Exactly. Finding her groove there.
And Lyra.
Huh?
In-ring stuff looked good, but some comments about her character maybe being a bit...
A little generic was the word I saw
Yeah.
used. Like, great wrestler, but maybe the personality hasn't fully popped yet.
And we gotta mention the other title change from that night, Dominik Mysterio winning the IC title.
Right. So now you've got this couple, both holding singles gold. Well, Liv has tag gold, Dom has singles. But both champions.
That just adds another layer, doesn't it? Potential for on-screen interactions, power couple dynamics,
Yeah,
another storyline thread.
absolutely. Lots of potential. Lots of potential there.
So, stepping back, looking at the bigger picture, this whole sequence of events, the surprise partner, the title change, it feels like a deliberate move, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. A way to inject some serious buzz, some adrenaline into the women's tag division.
Get people talking about those titles again. And obviously, Becky Lynch's return is just a massive boost for the whole women's roster. Star power.
Huge boost. Brings eyeballs, brings excitement.
So now we're left looking at Becky, seemingly as a full-on heel, a villain. What does that mean?
Well, the obvious direction seems to be a feud between Becky and Lyra. Maybe over Lyra's Intercontinental Championship.
That makes sense. The betrayed mentee seeking revenge against the mentor who turned on her. Classic story.
And what about Bayley? When she comes back, where does she fit in? Does she go after Becky? Does she have her own issues with Lyra? It seems like they're building a really tangled web here. So just to quickly recap this roller coaster, Becky's surprise return, teams with Lyra, they win the tag titles at WrestleMania in a big feel-good moment.
Then, bam, 24 hours later, they lose the titles back to Liv and Raquel on Raw.
And then the absolute stunner. Becky brutally attacks Lyra, betraying her completely.
Leaving us with so many questions. Why did Becky do it? What's next for Bayley? How does this shake up the whole women's division?
Okay, let's dive into this. Picture it. WrestleMania 41. The atmosphere is just buzzing, right? And then, boom, Stone Cold Steve Austin on a four-wheeler.
Austin comes out for the attendance announcement. Seems simple enough.
But it wasn't. We want to look at the entrance, the immediate fallout, and kind of what it all means.
Yeah, it's fascinating how something so, routine for WrestleMania, a legend coming out, turns into this whole other story.
Totally shows how unpredictable live events can be, even massive productions like this.
Even with someone like Austin, who's done it all.
Okay, glass shatters, crowd goes nuts, the music hits. And like seconds later, it's completely off the rails. Or, well, off the ramp, I guess.
Literally.
Apparently, there was a slight delay.
Yeah, seems he actually drove straight past the entrance ramp at first. Had to kind of double back.
Right. So he eventually gets down towards the ring on the ATV, does one lap, getting the crowd hyped.
Standard Stone Cold stuff. Everyone's loving it.
Then he goes for lap number 2. But this one took a bit of a wild turn. Uh-oh.
This is the moment. He crashes right into the ringside barricades.
Yeah, not just a bump, like a full-on collision.
And, there was that detail about the ring steps. Apparently, they were leaning against the ring right there.
Oh, right. That might explain it. Maybe why he, misjudged the turn or something.
Could be. And wasn't there something about him landing on the steps when he got off the ATV, too?
Yeah. Adding a bit of, maybe unintentional comedy right after the crash.
But the immediate thing, you could hear it in the commentary, was concern.
Definitely. Especially for that fan, a woman in the front row, who got knocked backward.
Michael Cole was right on it, wasn't he? Like, hope that young lady's okay. Instantly.
And Austin, too. Right after it happens, and then again getting off the ATV, he's checking on her.
Which is good, obviously. Shows that awareness, even in the middle of, being stone cold at WrestleMania.
Thank goodness for the barricade, really. Could have been worse.
Absolutely. It highlights that responsibility performers have, especially when they're interacting so closely with the crowd.
So then, after all that commotion, it's time for the actual announcement.
What were they again? 63,000?
63,226 for night 2. And the total for both nights, 124,693.
Huge numbers.
But Austin, being Austin, he wasn't buying it, or at least he played like he wasn't.
Classic Stone Cold, right? Questioning authority.
Yeah, he starts joking, saying it feels like way more people. Then he actually tries to, count people in the front rows.
Which didn't exactly work out from the sounds of it.
Not really. But he eventually gives in, declares it 124,693 solid-ass cats.
Pure Stone Cold, turning a simple announcement into a bit.
But back to the fan who got hit, it sounds like her experience wasn't quite so entertaining.
Right, that fan report that surfaced online said she was, and I quote, pissed.
Yeah, and listening back to some of the later commentary and analysis, they picked up on that too. Said she looked really angry.
There was even some chatter about maybe her beer getting knocked over, which, might add insult to injury.
Definitely wouldn't help. It kind of shows the different views, doesn't it?
Yeah.
For most people, maybe a wild moment, but for her?
Yeah, for the person directly involved, especially if you've paid a lot for that front row seat, getting hit by an ATV isn't exactly part of the fun. It's understandable she'd be upset.
And WWE seemed to take it pretty seriously, too, behind the curtain.
Oh, yeah. There were reports, I think, from Wrestling Observer Radio saying the company was nervous.
Nervous about a lawsuit, right?
And that seemed to be the concern. Apparently, Nick Khan, the WWE president, went over to check on her personally.
Right. And someone, maybe it was Meltzer, mentioned Khan is known for being a smooth operator. Like, he might be able to smooth things over.
Yeah, maybe offer some tickets, that kind of thing. The fact Khan addressed it on screen, too, that shows it was a big deal for them.
Absolutely. You don't usually see the company president stepping in like that unless it's serious.
It's all about risk management at that level. Fan safety incidents are, well, potentially costly in many ways. So a quick, visible response makes sense.
What struck me was how surprised the commentators sounded about Austin actually crashing.
Me too. They pointed out he's done the ATV entrance loads of times before, right?
Yeah, like it's almost his signature thing at big events sometimes. Never seen him mess it up before.
Someone even floated the idea that this weird moment might become like an immortal moment itself.
Haha, probably not the way he intended. They also talked about the speed, acknowledging it could have been much worse.
For sure. It's a reminder, isn't it? No matter how rehearsed live stuff with vehicles, there's always a risk.
Always that element of unpredictability.
Did they say something about the fans' reaction being delayed?
Yeah, one observation was that she didn't immediately fall. It was more like the impact happened, and then maybe she fell back in her chair, a slight delay.
Interesting detail.
And there's that whole discussion about, what kind of fan was she?
Right, like, was she a hardcore wrestling fan who might weirdly see getting hit by Stone Cold's ATV as a story to tell?
Or just someone there for the big event who was, understandably, just annoyed and maybe a bit shaken up.
Someone joked that a real diehard might be asking for a photo with the dented barricade or something.
Probably not far off for some. They also brought up the cost of those front row seats.
Yeah, that definitely plays into expectations, doesn't it? You pay top dollar, you expect a certain experience, probably not involving an ATV collision.
For sure. Oh, and didn't they mention that Nick Khan used to be an usher?
Yeah, way back at WrestleMania 9, apparently. Funny little bit of trivia.
Shows how people move up in that world.
But wait, there's more to this. Logan Paul came out with a story recently.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
He claimed Prime Hydration offered Stone Cold $1 million. A cool $1 million.
To do what?
Just to appear ringside. Popping out of a giant Prime Energy bottle.
Get out of here. Seriously, a bottle.
That's what Paul said. And apparently Austin just, wasn't interested, didn't even consider it.
Wow. Okay, so he turns down $1 million for a bottle stunt.
But does the ATV entrance instead, which ends up with a crash? It's kind of fascinating, right?
It really is. It speaks volumes, maybe, about authenticity. Or what feels right for his brand, even if it's less controlled.
Maybe the unpredictable moment generated more buzz anyway than a staged ad ever could.
Could be. That crash was everywhere online instantly. A Prime bottle reveal? Maybe not so much.
Good point. Then layering on top of all this, you've got Dave Meltzer.
Always watching, always analyzing. What did he say?
In the Wrestling Observer newsletter, he had this comment, pretty sarcastic,
Uh-huh.
basically questioning how Night 2 could possibly have drawn more people than Night 1.
Ah, right. Because Night 1 was reported as the sellout, wasn't it?
Exactly. So Meltzer's kind of poking holes in the official numbers, or at least the narrative around them.
Well, that's a classic wrestling discussion point, isn't it? Attendance figures. They're not always just about tickets scanned.
There's often a bit of storytelling involved, shaping perception.
Could be. Maybe saying the second night was bigger fits a certain narrative they wanted. So after everything, the announcement, checking on the fan, Austin just walks back up the ramp.
Yep. No more ATV riding for him that night, it seems. Smart move, maybe.
And then the visual of the announcers having a beer at the commentary table.
Yeah, kind of like, okay, let's take a breath here, inject a bit of levity, move things along.
And plug the next day's WWE World event, of course. Cena, Heyman on McAfee Show.
Gotta keep the promotional train rolling, right? Pivot back to the scheduled programming.
So, wrapping it all up, Stone Cold's big WrestleMania entrance hits a snag, literally. Crashes the ATV, hits a fan.
Fans not happy. Austin and the WWE president check on her. Backstage nerves about lawsuits flare up.
But Austin still gets the attendance number out there in classic style, even after the chaos. The commentary team was, well, a mix of shocked, worried, and maybe a little amused eventually.
The image that sticks, though, is Stone Cold Steve Austin, this absolute icon, having this very human, almost clumsy moment. And suddenly, real-world stuff like safety and legal worries crash into the spectacle.
Yeah, the line between the show and reality got really blurry really fast.
It really gives you a peek behind the curtain, doesn't it? How even these massive, polished productions are still live, unpredictable things.
Absolutely. That mix of planned entertainment and just stuff happening. It makes you think about these entrances, right?
Totally. How far do you push the spectacle? Where's that line between amazing and maybe slightly dangerous for the people right there?
And it makes you wonder, sitting there in the front row, if that had been you, how would you have reacted?
Yeah, would you be annoyed, scared, or maybe, just maybe, a tiny bit thrilled to be part of a bizarre WrestleMania moment? Something to think about. Okay, so you are likely still trying to figure out what exactly went down at the end of WrestleMania 41, Night 2.
Yeah, that main event. Cody Rhodes versus John Cena. Undisputed WWE Championship.
Right, and it's supposed to be Cena's last year. Pretty much everyone thinks that. And then he has that huge heel turn at Elimination Chamber.
Which set the stage, right? Massive stakes for this match. But how it ended, wow, that's caused a huge reaction, putting it mildly.
Absolutely. I mean, the whole build-up felt pretty rich. Cena, the legend, going for number 17, turns his back on the fans, targets Cody. Made for a good bad guy, you know?
Definitely. And we've looked at, well, a bunch of reports, commentary, people breaking down the whole thing, what happened in the ring, how the crowd took it.
Okay, let's really get into it then. Not just who won, but how it all happened and, yeah, what people are saying now. Starting before the bell even rang the entrances. Cena's first.
Man, that was something else. Just black screen, white letters, his name. That's it.
Which is wild for Cena at WrestleMania. He usually has these huge, over-the-top entrances. What did you make of that? Just stripping it all down.
It just screamed contrast, didn't it? Like all those years of the bright colors, the energy, connecting with the crowd, gone.
Yeah.
This felt bleak, no celebration. Like he was cutting ties with that whole spectacle thing on purpose.
Symbolism, maybe, for the heel turn, or even like, this is the end.
Could be both. Definitely a visual for this darker, maybe final run he's on.
And then Cody, talk about polar opposites.
Oh, yeah. Smoke everywhere. And those dirt bikers for the entrance, that was cool. A nod to Evel Knievel, maybe?
Yeah.
Vegas legend.
Things like it, yeah. And Cody's mask. The Iron Man thing.
Yeah, visually really strong. Fit his whole American nightmare, but also, you know, heroic vibe. It added to that big fight feel.
Definitely set the stage. And tons of pyro.
Plus that graphic they put up, 378 days champion, 9th defense, 10th mania. They really laid it on thick.
He even had that moment with his family at ringside. It was pure spectacle, all about him being the guy.
Exactly. It was all designed to say, this is the established top champion. The grandeur, mentioning the long reign, the family bit, projecting that confident, probably fan-favorite champ image, set expectations, for sure.
But here's where it gets kind of weird, thinking about the crowd noise then. Cena got a mixed reaction. Okay, but Cody, he got some actual boos coming out. Why do you think that happened? I mean, Cody's supposed to be the top good guy, the babyface.
And always tricky fan reactions, right? They shift. Cena turning heel, Even though it was a shock, maybe some fans were intrigued or just appreciated the change after so long.
Maybe.
And the Cody boos. Well, sometimes crowds just like booing the guy at the very top. Doesn't matter if he's the hero. Or maybe some folks, even with Cena as the bad guy, the heel, they still wanted to see him get that record 17th title.
Right. That history aspect.
Yeah. Commentary even mentioned later, like parts of the crowd seemed to get behind Cena during the match itself. So it was complicated.
Let's talk about the match then. What we saw on screen. Started pretty standard. Collar and elbow, shoulder tackles. Cena rolling outside to regroup early on.
Yeah. And the announcers pointed out Cena seemed slower. More basic offense. Not the usual explosive Cena.
Felt like maybe he was wrestling smarter, not harder. Like a vet trying to grind Cody down.
That seemed to be the story they were telling. Not relying on pure power, using veteran tricks, slowing the pace, even some cheap shots like eye pokes later.
Right.
Calculated maybe.
Right.
Wearing down the younger guy. And the basic moves kind of fit the new character too, maybe. Less flash. Just trying to get the win however he could.
But we still got the big moments, the near falls. Cody hit that suicide dive. Cena came back with big boots, lariats.
That tornado DDT from Cena was a surprise.
Yeah, and Cody hit the disaster kick, the Cody cutter. Cena kicked out.
Then the AA started piling up.
Oh, yeah. Multiple attitude adjustments, the super AA off the top, the avalanche AA. Cody kicked out of both. Crazy resilience.
And Cena even locked in the STF.
But Cody got out. It felt like they were throwing everything, you know, kitchen sink time. But nobody could get the pin.
It's that finisher spam thing again, which some people don't love. But here it was meant to show how much the title meant, how tough both guys were, the drama, the stakes.
Then things took a turn. The ref bump. Always a classic trope.
Happens, yeah. But then Cena immediately goes and rips off the turnbuckle. Very deliberate.
It just starts smashing Cody's head into the exposed steel, like multiple times. Then another AA.
Just pure villain, willing to do anything, break any rule.
But it didn't stop there. Suddenly, Travis Scott's music hits. Fiend, the Mania theme.
And he just walks out slowly down to the ring.
Cena's reaction was weird, too. Smiling, raising Scott's hand like they're buddies.
Yeah, that suggested something was up between them.
Then Cody makes a comeback, hits the crossroads. 1, 2, and Scott pulls the ref out.
What?
Yeah. Physically drags the ref out of the ring before the 3. A celebrity getting that involved in the main event finish, that felt really unusual for a world title match.
Highly unusual. And it looked intentional, choreographed almost. Cena smiling, Scott intervening like that. It just blurred the lines big time.
So Cody, obviously mad, waves Scott into the ring. Scott takes a swing, Cody blocks it, hits him with the crossroads, then kind of tells him to get lost.
Okay, so the crowd probably likes seeing Scott get his comeuppance there.
Probably. But it definitely took the focus off Cody and Cena for a bit. Just a bizarre detour in the middle of the championship match.
Yeah, really adding to the unconventional feel of the whole thing.
And then the actual finish, which people are really talking about. Cena grabs the title belt.
Okay, weapon time.
But Cody stops him, takes the belt away from him, like maybe trying to win clean honor. I don't know.
Risky move, given what just happened.
You think? Because right after that, Cena looks like he's begging off, then bam, low blow, super blatant.
Oof.
Followed immediately by smashing Cody with the title belt anyway.
Wow. So Cody stopping him didn't matter.
Nope. The ref slides back in, counts the 1, 2, 3. Cena wins, new champion.
And the show ends with Cena celebrating with Travis Scott.
Yeah. Unexpected, doesn't quite cover it. Controversial is more like it.
For sure. That finish was clearly meant to be controversial. Lock in Cena as the bad guy champ. The low blow, the belt shot, same stuff he did at Elimination Chamber, basically. Establishes his pattern.
And celebrating with Scott just rubs it in, right? Like aligning with the celebrity, ditching the old wrestling code.
Exactly. So how did that go over? What had the reaction been like?
Overwhelmingly negative from what we're seeing and hearing. Words like terrible, horrendous, underwhelming, some much stronger language too, just general disappointment.
Okay, so what are the main complaints? Why the backlash?
Seems like a few big things. Number 1, easily, where was The Rock?
Yeah, after Elimination Chamber, people expected him.
Totally. Fans felt like that whole story just got dropped. A lot of comments about feeling kind of, well, screwed over by that. His absence was a huge deal.
Makes sense. What else?
Cody not using the belt himself when he had the chance.
Right, when he took it from Cena.
Yeah. People felt it made him look dumb or naive. Like, Cena just cheated, Scott interfered, and Cody passes up the equalizer. It undermined him, folks are saying. Missed chance for payback.
Okay, I can see that point. Frustrating for his character. And the Travis Scott part.
Not popular, generally seen as taking away from the actual match, the wrestlers. Felt forced, like celebrity dick sucking was one phrase I saw used. Just didn't belong in the finish of the biggest match of the year.
Yeah, overshadowing the title fight.
And the finish itself, the low blow belt shot combo, just felt flat. Anticlimactic for such a big title change, apparently. Yeah, not satisfying.
So even though Cena won, people weren't happy how he won.
Exactly. And remember those boos for Cody earlier? There were reports of that happening during his comebacks, too. And cheers for Cena sometimes, but the cheating ending turned most people against Cena's win. We've got some interesting notes here from our Wrestling Observer.
Exactly.
Dave Meltzer's review of that specific WrestleMania 41 main event.
So when a Mania main event lands at, what was it, 1 3/4 stars?
Yeah, 1 3/4, it makes you go, okay, what went wrong? So that rating, 1 3/4 stars. What were the big reasons Meltzer gave for such a low score for that kind of match?
Well, one of the first things he pointed out was the pacing. He said it was very slow early.
Which isn't what you expect for a WrestleMania main event, is it? You want energy right away.
Exactly. But maybe more significantly, he talked about Cena's condition. He wrote, Cena was clearly hurting, and that he bumped like a guy who didn't want to be bumping. That's pretty telling.
Yeah, I mean, Cena's had an incredible career, but longevity means wear and tear. If he's limited physically.
It absolutely affects the match, especially against someone like Rhodes. That intensity, that dynamism, it might just not be there fully.
And Meltzer even mentioned a specific move, right? The Cody cutter.
He did. Said Cena didn't take it well. Little things like that can kind of pull you out of the match, break the illusion.
Okay, but the real, flashpoint seemed to be that spot with the championship belt.
Oh, yeah. That was the big one in the review, for sure. Walk us through that sequence again.
Okay, so Cena grabs the title belt, goes to use it.
Standard heel tactic, potentially.
Right, but Cody stops him. They have this tug of war over the belt. Cody wins. He gets the belt.
And this is the moment, right? The babyface has the weapon.
Exactly. And he refuses to use it. He tosses it aside.
And Meltzer's reaction to that was strong.
Very strong. He basically said, in 2025, you want to make sure a babyface doesn't get over, have him do that spot. He couldn't believe Rhodes agreed to it.
Wow. That's harsh. But he backs it up with a comparison to Cody's dad, Dusty Rhodes.
Yeah, he said there's not a 1% chance Dusty Rhodes in that situation isn't hitting the guy with the belt.
Which really highlights a generational shift, maybe. Or just a different philosophy on what makes a top babyface.
Or what connects with this audience. Meltzer even sketched out this alternate ending where Dusty does use the belt, gets a pin, maybe a second ref reverses it to a DQ.
Which he admitted might even be a worse finish, technically.
Right, but his point was that it wouldn't have made Cody look, weak or indecisive in the same way.
So the intention might have been, Cody's taking the high road, he's honorable.
But the execution, according to Meltzer, just completely backfired. Made him look like he choked, maybe, or just didn't want to win badly enough on the biggest stage.
It's such a fine line, isn't it?
Yeah.
Portraying virtue versus portraying, a lack of killer instinct when it matters most.
Especially at WrestleMania. And the crowd reaction seemed to kind of bear that out.
What did Meltzer say about the crowd at the end?
He said they popped big for the pin, sure, because they saw Cena break the record. Big moment on paper. But he immediately added, it wasn't much of a celebration like one would expect. The feeling was kind of flat, despite the historical achievement.
So the milestone happened, but the journey there, the actual match and finish, kind of soured the whole thing.
Pretty much. Which led to Meltzer's overall summary. Between Cena's limitations and the bad finish, this was a very sour ending to the show.
It's important, though, that he did praise other parts of the show.
Oh, definitely. He wasn't down on the whole event. He said the first 3 matches were great, called the opener maybe one of the best women's matches ever done in the U.S., so context is key.
It wasn't a disaster of a show, just a main event that really missed the mark for him.
Right. And interestingly, Meltzer said both guys actually got booed initially.
Okay.
But then Cena wins using a low blow and then a belt shot, the very thing Rhodes refused to do.
And the crowd.
They cheered Cena after that. Meltzer's take was that people saw a happening, a title change, the supposed Flair record being broken. The event of it overshadowed the heelish tactics.
That's fascinating. So the moment trumped the method.
Seems like it. And Cena's quote afterwards, winners write history.
Which Meltzer saw as a kind of nod to the fact that, the actual Flair record count is debatable and WWE tells its own story.
Exactly. Winners write the history. Or at least the WWE narrative.
It really shows how much control they have over how these things are framed for the audience. And the Travis Scott interference, can't forget that.
Right. Meltzer specifically noted it took forever for him to get to the ring, and they basically had to stall, which looked bad.
Yeah, celebrity spots can be tricky. They need to be integrated smoothly.
And then, of course, the big one, the finish. The refusal to use the belt, the low blow. Meltzer called it unbelievably lame.
He also tied it back to a previous story, didn't he, with Kevin Owens?
He did, yeah. Pointed out that Owens also hesitated to use a weapon on Rhodes when Rhodes was supposedly injured.
So it felt like a repeated trope, this idea of pulling the trigger and failing to do so.
Made it feel less fresh, maybe less impactful this time around.
And there were concerns about Rhodes' character arc even before the match, too, right?
Yeah, Meltzer floated the idea that maybe Rhodes getting beaten down by Cena, The Rock, and Scott in that Elimination Chamber angle.
Okay.
But then just engaging in debates instead of, like, actively seeking payback. Maybe that contributed to the crowd not being fully behind him in that key moment.
Interesting. Like, maybe fans wanted to see more fire, more aggression from him leading up to Mania, and that passive response carried over.
Could be. It's about meeting audience expectations for how a hero should react, I guess.
But Meltzer did offer a possible out, story-wise.
Oh, yeah.
He suggested this whole thing might be a setup.
A setup for what?
For a rematch.
Right.
Where Rhodes does finally snap, maybe. He does pull the trigger and hits Cena with a belt shot.
Ah, okay. So the unsatisfying finish now becomes part of a longer story. The eventual payoff.
Exactly. Classic wrestling booking, potentially. Make them wait for it. We'll see if that actually happens, but it's a way to make sense of it.
Speaking of future stuff, The Rock popped up on Pat McAfee's show.
Right. What did he have to say? He wasn't even Mania 41, was he?
No, but he was talking storylines. He apparently suggested Rhodes gets another babyface run, then turns heel for a feud with The Rock himself.
Okay, that's ambitious. Is that locked in?
Well, that's the twist. Meltzer reported that his sources, people in the company who would in theory be aware, claim that's not the plan.
Huh. So, backstage intrigue, conflicting reports, standard stuff.
Pretty much. Keeps things interesting, I guess.
What about Travis Scott? The Rock mentioned him too.
Yeah, Rock praised Scott's passion for wrestling, said he respects the business, even mentioned Scott planning to train at Booker T's school.
Okay, so maybe more appearances down the line.
Seems possible. There was even chatter reported about a potential tag match. Maybe Scott teaming with Cena?
Against who?
Maybe Bad Bunny. He's got history and credibility now.
Wow, that's a lot of celebrity power.
Mhm.
Who partners with Bunny then?
Well, Meltzer speculated that Cody Rhodes would make the most sense there. You'd need someone with Cena's wrestling star power on the other side to balance it out.
True. Keeps the wrestling aspect grounded. So now there's maybe concern Cody might get booed more going forward.
That's the speculation, yeah. It's messy. This whole fan sentiment thing is wild.
It really shows how unpredictable wrestling fans can be. The heel turn for Cena was interesting at first.
Right, it had potential.
But without the Rock payoff and this kind of finish at Mania, it seems like it kind of backfired. Didn't land the way maybe they hoped.
Yeah, the report suggests the overall impact of the heel turn got kind of watered down by how things played out.
Critical point.
Mm.
You need that follow-through in storytelling. The shock value wears off if the story doesn't connect the dots logically. No Rock, weird finish. Yeah, it diluted things.
So looking ahead now, what are the big questions coming out of this?
Well, obviously, Cody chasing the title again. That's got to be story number one.
Yep.
Then there's Cena as this heel champion.
Yeah.
What does that look like? Who does he face?
And Travis Scott, is he going to
Yeah.
be around more? Maybe even wrestle? Who knows?
That's a big unknown. And looming over everything, still, The Rock.
Yeah,
What was his deal? Is he coming back into this? So many unanswered questions.
definitely.
We're getting into the aftermath of WrestleMania 41 Night 2, specifically that main event.
Oh, yeah, the one everyone's still debating.
Exactly. John Cena beating Cody Rhodes. So we've looked at some pretty strong takes from the Busted Open podcast folks on YouTube.
Yeah, they didn't hold back.
Not at all.
Mm-hmm.
And also an article from WrestlingHeadlines.com covering The Rock's response to, well, all the backlash.
Right.
Try to understand the reactions, the key issues, and, what this might mean for WWE going forward.
Okay. Because the reactions were definitely split, weren't they?
Totally. You had that immediate, outrage from a lot of people, just pure disappointment that Cody lost.
Mm-hmm.
So the big questions are, why? Why did this happen? What story were they trying to tell?
And what does it say about where WWE is heading, creatively?
And, of course, the elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe the elephant not in the room.
Mm.
The Rock. What was his deal?
Or lack thereof, yeah. Okay, so let's start with that immediate blowback. The fan reaction, the fan blame.
Okay,
Yeah.
the busted open guys.
Dave LaGreca from Busted Open. Oh,
They were not happy.
no, that's putting it mildly. I mean, the language they used, shit way to end, embarrassment, real anger. It wasn't just, oh, that's a shame.
No, it felt visceral, like a genuine betrayal for them.
Definitely. And then they pivoted to this pretty bold argument about the fans being responsible.
Which is interesting. Can you unpack that a bit?
Well, they basically looked back at, years of people complaining about Cena, the whole PG era, his dominance.
Right. The Cena wins LOL era.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now, fast forward, those same people, or at least a vocal section, are cheering Cena's return. Loudly. And at the same time, maybe the reactions to Cody's title run weren't always electric, according to them anyway.
Yeah, they painted it as a bit lukewarm. Which is weird, right? Because by all accounts, WWE had maybe its best financial year ever during Cody's run.
That's the disconnect. Record profits, but then this booking decision makes you scratch your head.
So Busted Open called out the hypocrisy, cheering Cena, getting what you cheered for, and then complaining.
It's a tough pill to swallow, maybe, but you can see their point.
They even brought up Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair, suggesting this is like a pattern, disruptive title changes that maybe derail momentum.
Yeah, that comparison came up. And they listed other frustrations too, right? Like the whole legends taking spots thing.
Oh, yeah. Old-timers stealing the spotlight, the lack of any real Rock involvement after Elimination Chamber.
And Travis Scott, we got to talk about Travis Scott, just random.
Completely out of nowhere. And yeah, they mentioned the vibe leaving the stadium. Apparently not many smiles, just confusion. Yeah, just confusion, not the WrestleMania feeling you want. So
Yeah.
definitely some concerned voice there about WWE's direction.
For sure. A real sense of what are they thinking? Because there's a difference, isn't there, between leaving fans with a bad taste and generating real heat.
Explain that difference.
Well, bad taste is just, ugh, that sucked. You feel disappointed, maybe confused. Heat is when you're angry, but you have to see what happens next. You're invested in the comeuppance.
And the argument is the Mania ending was more bad taste than actual heat.
That seems to be the consensus among the critics, yeah.
Okay, let's shift a bit. Let's talk about the match itself and Cody's choices in the match. There was some debate there, too.
There was. Cole's commentary, remember? He asked point blank if Cody would end up good or bad.
Right.
And the Busted Open guys, they seem to almost want Cody to snap, to, break out of that pure good guy box.
They felt he missed opportunities.
Yeah, specifically with Travis Scott getting involved. Why didn't Cody retaliate? Why didn't he go after Cena harder when things got dirty?
It raised that whole question again. What is a good guy in wrestling today? In 2025, does it mean always taking the high road?
Apparently the Busted Open crew felt it made Cody look, well, kind of like a fool for not fighting fire with fire.
They contrasted it with older baby faces, right? Like Dusty, Hogan.
Yeah, guys who weren't afraid to bend the rules or get their hands dirty when pushed. They weren't always purely reactive.
But there's a counter argument, isn't there? The whole Jedi way thing.
Right, the idea that Cody consciously chose not to stoop to their level. Like Luke Skywalker refusing to strike down Vader in anger. Maintaining his principles.
So two very different ways of looking at what makes a hero compelling.
Definitely. And underlying all that still, the Travis Scott thing. Just no build, no follow-up, just there.
Baffling. Which, honestly, kind of leads us neatly in the whole Rock situation. His involvement, or maybe his conspicuous lack of involvement at Mania itself?
Yeah, the theory that won't go away is that him jumping in back at Elimination Chamber, apparently because ticket sales were a bit soft,
Right.
just completely derailed whatever the original Mania plan was.
It makes you wonder, right? What was plan A?
You could totally see a path, couldn't you? Just Cena versus Cody, building naturally. Maybe Cena turns heel at Mania. Perhaps Randy Orton gets involved somehow.
Without The Rock casting that huge shadow over everything.
Exactly. And the feeling, at least from the critics, is that Rock's limited, kind of confusing role ended up hurting both Cody and Cena, and maybe WWE's image overall.
Yeah, it feels like it muddied the waters significantly. And it feeds into that narrative we touched on earlier.
Yeah.
Maybe fan enjoyment isn't the top priority.
Well, the Busted Open guys definitely leaned into that, suggesting it's more about the money, the merch, the social media buzz.
And they mentioned seeing a lot of Cena merch at Mania, didn't they?
They did, which, adds fuel to that fire. If the goal is shifting shirts and getting clicks, maybe the Cena win makes a certain kind of business sense, even if the story feels off.
And the Cena heel turn itself. Did it really land? Without The Rock there consistently as the antagonist.
That's the argument. It felt muted. Here's this legend, maybe on his way out, going for the record, but the heel turn felt overshadowed or incomplete without the expected Rock follow-up.
It just felt like a sharp left turn after Elimination Chamber. Like you started watching one movie and halfway through it turned into a different sequel.
Great analogy. Now, The Rock did give his side of the story, right, on Pat McAfee's show.
He did. Said he wanted Cena to have his moment. Step back intentionally.
Which, okay. But given the whole final boss taking Cody's soul build-up...
It felt a little convenient, maybe. Didn't quite square with the intensity before.
A lot of people felt that way. Then you had his Instagram response to Dave LaGreca from Busted Open. That was something.
Calling the business a complete work. Pretty direct.
Very direct. And inviting LaGreca to creative meetings, plus the PS about the drinks and hush puppies. Classic Rock deflection, maybe.
Could be. But what was his main point in that response? His justification?
He basically doubled down, said the final boss story was set at Elimination Chamber, and his plan was to let Cena's heel turn be the focus at Mania.
So from his perspective, it all went according to his adjusted plan.
Seems so. He talked up Cena as a heel champ, said Cody has potential as both a face and a heel.
Interesting. He sees paths for Cody still.
Yeah. And he admitted being surprised by Travis Scott showing up, but kind of shrugged it off as Scott just being a big fan.
Okay. And he felt WWE had enough time, those 6 weeks after Chamber, to build the Cena turn properly.
He said they did, yeah. And claimed he was happy with the finish, though maybe he'd have tweaked a few small creative things.
Right. So fast forward to now. Huge pressure on Raw, right?
Yeah.
To kind of fix things, or at least address the feeling from Mania.
Massive pressure.
Las Vegas, the night after WrestleMania. The buzz is still there. John Cena comes out. He's the new undisputed WWE champion.
It's 17th time.
Yeah.
Still sounds wild.
It really does. Breaking Flair's record for world titles? I mean,
Yeah.
in wrestling history, that's enormous.
It really is. Flair's the benchmark for so many. Usually that kind of achievement gets, universal respect, but
Yeah.
sounds like this went a different way.
Oh, it definitely did. Over the top.
How so?
They call Cena the greatest of all time, the never-seen 17, and get this, the last real champion.
Wow. Feels like someone's trying hard to shape the perception here.
Totally. It feels manufactured. And then Cena finally gets the mic, and any thought of, like, a humble thank you speech just evaporates.
What does he say?
He hits him with, winners write history, and then, boom, you are not worthy.
Oof. Straight out of the gate attacking the audience. That's a choice.
He mentions being bullied on Friday, presumably SmackDown, and seems to think winning the title means everyone should just forget it and forgive him.
The classic, I won, so I was right defense.
Kinda. Then he uses this really weird analogy. He asks the crowd if they treat their spouse or their kids the way they treat him.
Whoa. Okay, that's personal.
He's not just basking in the win, he's airing grievances. Decades of them, it sounds like.
And does he stop there?
Oh, no. He demands an apology. Says they owe him one for hijacking Raw for years, especially around WrestleMania time.
Hijacking Raw. Wow. He's really going there. How did the crowd react to that?
They start chanting, "We aren't sorry."
Okay, good for them.
And Cena just leans into it harder. Says even if they think he's an anus, which is quite the word choice.
Yeah, just a bit.
It doesn't matter because they've called him worse for 25 years. He says he's taken their best shot and always gotten back up.
So he's basically embracing the hate, turning it into fuel. It's a complete reversal of the hustle, loyalty, respect mantra, isn't it? Years of frustration just boiling over.
Totally. But then, right in the middle of this tirade, he pivots. He reminds everyone he started the year saying he only had 36 dates left before he's gone.
Oh, right. I remember that. The limited schedule thing.
Yeah, and he emphasizes how fast time is going. Then he actually starts counting down his remaining appearances. Not matches, appearances. Says it totals 27 left.
27 appearances. Maybe less actual wrestling.
Could be. And then he makes this statement that's just incredibly bold. He says, when that hits 0, the professional wrestling timeline stops. Cold for him.
Stops cold. Wow.
But clarifies, like, Raw will continue. There will be a new champion eventually. But his title reign is different. Because he is.
Let me guess. The last real champion.
You got it. Then he turns his attention to Cody Rhodes.
Yes. The man he beat controversially.
Right. And he criticizes the audience for how they've treated Cody. Booing him, cheering him, then booing him again after Mania.
pointing out the fans' inconsistency.
Exactly. He says Cody, the guy they supposedly loved last year, now disgusts them. And he uses that to say, basically, see, this is what's wrong with you people.
So he's using their reaction to Cody to justify his own win and his own attitude. Your judgment is flawed, therefore I'm right. It's quite the manipulation tactic.
And he drives it home by saying Cody was outshined, outclassed, outwrestled, and flat out destroyed at WrestleMania.
No ambiguity there, just complete dismissal.
None. And then comes the setup. He makes this massive claim. There is no one in the WWE with the strength, the speed, the wisdom, or the ruthless aggression of John Cena.
Peak arrogance right there.
Totally. But then he softens, or pretends to, says, but unlike you, I have a heart. And he wants to do something nice. Tells everyone to get their cameras out.
Oh boy, what now?
He says, you're going to want to remember this moment. Tells them to get a great picture because the last real champ is here.
He's literally posing for photos mid-promo, basking in his own glory. That's just begging for something to happen.
And begging is what he got.
Yeah.
Because, bam.
Don't tell me.
RKO.
Yes.
Nowhere. Randy Orton.
Yes. Oh, that's perfect timing.
The commentary nailed it. Cena wanted a photo. Randy heard some voices in his head.
Classic Orton. The RKO is the ultimate move for that kind of situation. Just instant deflation of ego. Completely cuts Cena off at the knees right when he's at his most boastful.
And it immediately throws that last real champion claim into question, right? The commentators jump on it.
As they should. How can you be the untouchable final boss when you just got laid out?
Exactly. They quickly remind everyone that Orton himself, he's a 14-time world champion.
Right. He's not exactly far behind Cena in the record books. He's got the pedigree.
So Orton's attack isn't just random violence.
Another legend standing in Cena's way. And of course, there's the history.
Oh, the decades of history between Cena and Orton. One of the defining rivalries of their era.
So this RKO isn't just an attack, it's reigniting that feud, potentially setting up a huge match, challenging Cena's claim to be the ultimate champ. It's loaded with meaning. Backlash over in St. Louis, that's May 10th, 2025.
Okay, Cena and Orton.
And get this, they're specifically billing it as one last time.
One last time. Wow. Okay, that's a statement.
Right.
It suggests WWE is, really planning to frame this as the final definitive chapter in their whole rivalry.
And what a rivalry it's been. Decades, right?
Exactly. Given all their history, the championships, just how long they've both been at the top.
Yeah.
Calling it one last time, that's designed to hit fans right in the feels. It taps into that long-term investment.
No doubt. So they've been in the ring together plenty of times over the years, multi-man matches, tags, all that.
Yeah.
But this is supposed to be their first singles match in, well, quite a while, apparently.
That's what's interesting. Yeah, their last actual one-on-one match was way back on February 11th, 2017.
Oh, it's only 17.
Yeah. And get this, it wasn't even on TV. It was at a house show. A non-televised live event in New Mexico.
So it's been over 8 years since they properly faced off, just the two of them, in a singles match like this.
Pretty much. That's a really significant gap, especially for two guys who were rivals for so long at the highest level. Shows how their careers have kind of shifted.
That is a long time. And there's another layer here, too, isn't there? Backlash is in St. Louis.
Randy Orton's hometown.
Exactly. You just know that crowd is going to be absolutely insane. Adds a whole other level of drama, doesn't it?
It really does. Hometown pops are always huge, but for Orton, with this potential one last time narrative, yeah, the energy is going to be off the charts. It makes you wonder how that plays into the story they tell. Now, the Raw after WrestleMania, April 21st. That was pretty wild, too.
Always a big show. The Raw after Mania sets the tone.
Yeah. Jey Uso got congrats from Sami Zayn and his brother Jimmy, so maybe more story there. Gunther was furious, attacked Michael Cole and Pat McAfee at the commentary desk.
Gunther letting off steam.
Becky Lynch turned heel, attacked Lyra Valkyria after they lost the tag titles back to Liv and Raquel in a rematch. Alpha Academy got jumped by a returning Rusev.
Rusev's back.
Yeah, before their match. And then this was huge. Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman came out, got interrupted by CM Punk and Roman Reigns. It turned into a massive brawl, and Bron Breakker ran down and joined Rollins and Heyman. A whole new alliance formed right there.
Breakker siding with Rollins and Heyman against Punk and Reigns. Okay, that is a major development. That Raw after Mania really did shake things up. New alliances, new rivalries, sets the stage for the whole next year.
Definitely. And finally, just the sheer numbers again for attendance. Night 1 was 57,037. Night 2 was 60,343.
Wow.
Combined total, 117,380 people.
Incredible numbers. Just shows the massive drawing power WrestleMania still has. It's a true global phenomenon. WWE consistently delivers that huge spectacle.
So, wrapping this up for you, the big takeaways from WrestleMania 41, massive title changes, really shocking betrayals. Heyman's especially is going to have ripples.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of celebrity involvement woven in. And yeah, that super controversial main event finish on night 2 with Cena.
Right. And the real aha moments, I think, come when you see how it all connects. Those twists in the main events, how they use the celebrities, the sort of behind-the-scenes reasons for the timing and location.
Yeah.
It all builds the whole picture.
Exactly. So here's a final thought for you to chew on. Considering how that undisputed title match ended so controversially and that brand new, totally unexpected alliance that formed on Raw, what's the long-term impact going to be on the WWE landscape on Cena's supposed final run?
And what about Netflix being fully in the mix now? How does that really change things for WWE reaching its audience around the world?
Big questions, right? Definitely something to think about as we see the fallout from WrestleMania 41 continue.